Hello and welcome to Eurosport's live coverage of round 2 of the 1997 PPG Kart World Series. This is Ben Edwards, joined by former Grand Prix and current GT driver David Brabham as we prepare for the 7th running of the Surfers Paradise race in just about perfect conditions on this eastern seaboard of Australia. It's been 5 weeks since that season opener in Miami on the Homestead Oval, a race that saw a superb debut win for the Swift IndyCar in the hands of Michael Andretti as he moved up from 14th on the grid to take the victory. But he's got a similarly tough job ahead of him this afternoon. From 12th place on the grid, qualifying was not to his advantage, but it was to this man's advantage. Yesterday's pictures, Alex Zanardi taking a record-breaking 6th pole position in a row. Including the races from last year, Zanardi has achieved a remarkable feat of 6 pole positions on a variety of different tracks. Some road courses, some street tracks, and on an oval as well. Let's take a look at the grid then. Alex Zanardi is joined by Paul Tracy on the front row of the grid, and Zanardi only snatched pole position in the dying moments of yesterday's qualifying. Jimmy Vasser, the winner here last year, is on the 2nd row of the grid alongside the young Canadian Greg Moore. Mark Blundell put in another fine qualifying effort. He's 5th on the grid ahead of Parker Johnston. Then Scott Pruitt, who was fastest this morning in the warm-up, ahead of Maurizio Guterman in the other Pac West car, the same team as Mark Blundell. Christian Fittipaldi in the Swift is in 9th position. Bobby Rahal is in 10th place. Gilles de Ferran, the leader in Miami, is in 11th place, and the winner from Miami, 12th place for Michael Andretti on the grid. Dario Franchitti did a good job, 13th on the grid, fastest in his qualifying session, ahead of Andre Ribeiro. Then it's Adrian Fernandez and Brian Herter. Starting 16th, Herter, he's also got a lot of work to do. But what about Alonso Jr.? He's never won here in Australia. He starts 17th, ahead of Walter Sales. Raul Boesel is next up in 19th position. And Boesel, who had a few little problems getting the car started just now, but it seems to be running fine. Richie Hearn in 20th. Patrick Carpentier is in 21st place, ahead of Max Papis in 22nd. Then it's Juan Manuel Fangio in 23rd place, ahead of another newcomer to the IndyCar Series this year, Paul Jasper. He comes from the Toyota Atlantic Championship and put in a respectable performance yesterday. PJ Jones is next up, ahead of the Mexican Michel Jourdain Jr. And then we've got 2 more cars on this 28-car grid for the race. Ernst Meyer from Germany is taking part in his first ever PPG Kart Series race, and Hiro Matsushita, the Japanese driver, on the back of the grid and ready to start this 65-lap event. Well, that pole position from Zanardi yesterday, he leads them around the grid. Let's just check the points after that first round of the championship from Homestead. Michael Andretti obviously leading the table, Paul Tracy in 2nd place, and watch out for Paul Tracy. I know, David, he is to a certain extent your man for this afternoon's race.
Yeah, I think over the last race at Homestead and the qualifying here, I think Paul's in pretty good shape. The Goodyear tyres seem to be quite good during the race, and you know, the Penske crew are very slick in the pits, and I think you know, if I had to put any money down, I think I'd put it down for Paul Tracy.
Well, that point that you make about the pit stop is an absolutely vital one. The overtaking is not easy around this track. It's possible, there are some overtaking opportunities, but it's not easy. There's confirmation of Zanardi's new record-breaking run, 6 pole positions in a row, beating the joint record of Danny Sullivan and Mario Andretti. And in fact, it's his 10th consecutive front row start. And that, David, really takes some doing in top international racing, to be on the front row 10 times in a row.
It certainly does, because, you know, when you look at Alex Zanardi's career, you haven't really seen him on pole position that many times. But, you know, he's now got himself into a really good situation with a great team. And his confidence is building, and you can see he's right on top of it, and he's on a crest of a wave. He's doing a fantastic job.
Interesting quote from him coming up to this race. In fact, he was saying that he never considered himself to be a very good qualifier, and yet there he is with this remarkable record. As you say, largely down to the fact that he's in a good team, he's got the right car, and once again the combination that they're running, they've got the Reynard chassis with the Honda engine and the Firestone tyres. That seems to be the combination, certainly from qualifying, that is the winning combination. But it's quite close, isn't it, this year, because we've got some other cars up there as well.
Yes, that's right. It's very close this year, because we've got the Swift car that came in and won the first race, the Ford engines, the Honda engines, the Mercedes engines. The Toyota engines are still struggling a little bit, but I'm sure with a bit of time they'll be coming right too.
On board at the moment with Christian Fittipaldi, and he went well this morning in the warm-up. He was 3rd fastest. He's starting from 9th position on the grid, but he goes well on this circuit. He's had some good results here in the past. It's one of his favourite street tracks, in fact, and was very impressed when he made the switch from Formula 1 to come to this Surfers Paradise race. So keep an eye out on Christian. He may well be up there. Finished in 5th place last year. We had a Firestone 1-2-3 result last year, with Vassar winning from Scott Pruitt and Greg Moore, but Christian Fittipaldi will be trying to do something about that. Christian Fittipaldi leads this way through the chicanes as the cars are coming round on the warm-up for the second round of the 1997 PPG Kart World Series, but it's Alex Zanardi who leads the field on that pole position. Paul Tracy in the 2nd place. We'll be starting with him on the front row. Jimmy Vassar in 3rd place. Now watch out for Jimmy Vassar. He had a good run in Homestead as well. It wasn't a winning run, that was for Andretti, but Vassar finished in 3rd place in Homestead. The champion from last year, one of the most consistent runners on the scene. And David Brabham, Jimmy Vassar is one of those guys, I know you raced against him in the Atlantic Championship. He is one of the most consistent racers out there, isn't he? Just briefly, because we're about to get underway.
He knows that to win the championship he needs to score points, and that's the most important thing to him.
Okay, well, let's get this race underway now. 65 laps about to start here at Surfers Paradise. Paul Tracy in the white and red car on the outside. Alex Zanardi in the all-red car on the inside. We get the green flag, and away we go. And it's Zanardi and Tracy battling down towards the first corner. And a good start. Everybody in position, and the battle into the first corner sees Zanardi sneaking ahead of Tracy. Vassar in 3rd, Greg Moore in 4th, ahead of Parker Johnston and Scott Pruitt. A little bit of bumping and boring going on towards the back of the field there, and that's fairly typical through these chicanes. Very, very tight, trying to thread their way through these chicanes on the first lap. Yeah,
when you get down there with all those cars going in there so fast, it's good to see that there was no actual spins or damage.
Mark Blundell has lost out a little bit, trying to make up some ground again, but Alex Zanardi made a good getaway, just managed to sneak ahead of Paul Tracy as they went down towards the first chicane. Jimmy Vassar in 3rd place, then Greg Moore. Parker Johnston's coming under pressure from Scott Pruitt already. Pruitt, in fact, is just looking for a way past as we come back down towards the next chicane. Oh, Johnston's been hit by Pruitt, gets it very sideways, but manages to gather it back together. Good piece of recovery driving.
Yeah, that was a great piece of recovery driving. I mean, he obviously may have anticipated it by seeing something in the mirrors.
Yeah, he saw that Pruitt was having a go. And now, look at this, it's bottling up a little bit. Mark Blundell is in that battle as well. Maurizio Guterman is right in behind Mark Blundell, but it means that the top 4 beginning to pull away. And where is Parker Johnston? He's dropped, oh, there he is on the outside. It looks as though he could have picked up some sort of problem.
Yeah, it looks like he may have picked up a puncher from that, because it looked a little strange as he went through the chicane and everyone was just banking up behind him.
Well, that's sad news for Parker Johnston if that's the case. Qualified in 6th place. It was a good job. He said he put together one of his best ever laps of recent races to qualify in 6th. They had a lot of work to do on the car, but it looks as though he may well be dropping down the order. That's the team that, or part of the team that Jacques Villeneuve drove for a couple of years ago to win the championship. But it doesn't look as though Parker Johnston's going to have that sort of luck here today. Alex Zanardi, race leader, being hounded still by Paul Tracy in 2nd. These two beginning to pull away a little bit from Jimmy Vassar in 3rd place. And 4th position for Greg Moore. 5th place for Scott Pruitt. And keep your eye out for that yellowy orange car of Scott Pruitt. He's had a good series of results here at Surfers Paradise over the last few years. Oh, we've got drama there indeed. And Gilles de Ferran in the Valvoline car is involved. Several other cars. It looks like Michel Jourdain in the Nexlab car. And I just thought we'd see a flag in the background, but Gilles de Ferran, my word, he's been so unlucky, David. Remember, leading in Homestead, obviously he wasn't in that sort of position here at Surfers Paradise, but there's obviously been a major accident. Just look at the debris.
There's so much debris there, they're obviously going to stop the race. And it's a shame to see accidents like this at the beginning of the race, because it's just so disheartening.
Well, look in the background there. I mean, we can't see what happened, but that's just been a huge impact there. I'm trying to spot. Well, oh, yes, well, you can see there's been a car with its left front ripped off. That's Christian Fittipaldi, I think. I think that was the Budweiser car, the Swift of Christian Fittipaldi, that's made contact with Gilles de Ferran, and Christian's car's been ripped off. There's Michael Andretti picking his way through, and there is Christian, and well, it looks as though he may well have got trapped in the car. He's obviously moving around okay, but it looks as though he's stuck in the car, and the kart safety team are on the scene very quickly as ever to try and get him out of the Swift, and that has obviously been a very, very nasty accident indeed. Christian Fittipaldi was lying in about 6th or 7th place there, starting in 9th position. Gilles de Ferran had started in 11th place, and it's obviously clear that Christian is in a fair bit of discomfort.
Yeah, it's obviously, you can see there's a lot of damage on the car, and the front of the car at the bulkhead there, you know, his feet will probably be sticking out a little bit there, so obviously it's concern for his legs.
Let's just have a look and see. Well, the race has been stopped, and there, my word, he really hit that wall at an angle, didn't it? Well, a very direct hit onto the wall. And there was obviously contact between him and another car before they even got to that
it looks
stage.
like it's Gilles and Christian have touched wheels and have just sent each other into the wall, and obviously Christian's come off a lot worse. That second impact there was probably the one that's done the damage.
Yeah, that's right. Once the initial impact is absorbed, and these cars have amazing properties to absorb impact from very high speed, but once the absorption has occurred once, then of course there's not much there to take a secondary impact sometimes. And this is really, well, let's see what this is going to be, isn't it? Because this is a view from on board.
Look, he's getting touched, he's getting hit by someone behind him, and obviously that's just sent him into the wall.
Let's take a look. He goes across the pit lane exit and then straight into the wall. And the
camera didn't like it either.
No, that's right. And well, that was a very nasty-looking accident indeed. I mean, from what we've seen, it looks as though Christian is basically okay, but it's really a question of if he's damaged his feet, his ankles, or his legs in this. And you can see the cutting device at the front there. Let's look from Michael Andretti's point of view. Can we see? Well, we couldn't. It was him and Gilles, definitely Gilles and Christian, who tangled there. But very difficult to actually see what initiated that and how they managed to make contact, because perhaps Gilles was trying to squeeze through, perhaps Christian hadn't seen him, was just trying to take his line through that little curve. It's really just a gentle curve there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It's, you know, two guys trying to probably save their own ground going into the corner, and may have misjudged it slightly, but let's hope that Christian's okay.
That's right. So Alex Zanardi was the race leader before that happened. We're going to take a break. Come back with us in just a moment. Paradise, where the race has been stopped thanks to an accident to Christian Fittipaldi, a very nasty looking accident, and the kart safety team still working on that corner and still working to get Christian out of the car, trapped in the car after a frontal impact against the wall, a contact that was made between him and Gilles de Ferran. David, we were looking at it again a little bit just over the break. Still very difficult to see what actually initiated it, wasn't it?
Yeah, obviously, because all the angles didn't really give us a clear indication, but obviously he's had two hits of the wall, and these cars are very strong, but once they've had their second hit, it tends to weaken everything around your feet when you go head first like that. But you know, the guys here who are working on it are the best you can actually get in the business. So, you know, as far as that's concerned, you know, Christian's in good hands, so they'll be taking their time, and their main concern will obviously be Christian.
Yes, and the medical facilities and everything here in Australia are amongst the finest as well. The kart medical team that travels to each and every of the races, including the ones outside the United States, and headed by Dr. Steve Olvey nowadays, new kart medical director from the beginning of this year. Well, there's Christian out of the car. It's really just a question of the damage that's been done to his feet or ankles in that impact. Now, of course, these chassis, they're built out of carbon fiber monocoque, of carbon fiber honeycomb, and they are immensely strong, aren't they? I mean, the properties of this material, not only is it so light, but it really is immensely strong stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing material, and also the rules and regulations for kart are very strict as far as driver safety is concerned. They've always had a lot of padding around their heads, which Formula One have sort of followed, and there's Christian now. That's at high speed.
Yeah, that shows you how fast he went in, doesn't it? And this is the view again from Michael Andretti, and just look at the amount of debris that was thrown across in front of Andretti. Well, he did well to avoid it.
Yeah, he was lucky to get through it. And lucky that escape road was there as well.
Yeah, that's right. So a really dramatic accident indeed. And, well, as we say, let's just hope that Christian's okay. You can see one of the shock absorbers there that's actually been unbolted, or unless that actually came free in the accident, that may well have been unbolted by the safety team as they got Christian out of the car, and they're obviously just checking out his feet at the moment to perhaps set them or put some sort of splint on Christian before they transfer him into the ambulance. And well, the clear-up operation will now begin. Of course, all the other cars have stopped back in the pit lane now, and it's a sad way for the race to get underway here, but Christian Fittipaldi is being looked after extremely well. There's the car of Gilles de Ferran on the left-hand side of the picture. Gilles de Ferran, the Brazilian, fellow Brazilian, Christian Fittipaldi, they know each other very well. Over the years, they've raced against each other coming up through the ranks, and of course, IndyCar racing very, very strong in Brazil now. Christian Fittipaldi, nephew of Emerson Fittipaldi, and he's come into the IndyCar Series, been in the championship now for a couple of seasons. Second year now with the Newman Haas team, into one of the best teams in the sport. And Christian Fittipaldi's done a good job. He hasn't won any races so far in the championship, but he's done a very professional and solid job for the team, and really just been looking for that opportunity. He came very close to winning last year, in fact, in the Detroit race, finished second to teammate Michael Andretti on that occasion, had to let him through in the closing stages. But it's been a very promising career so far in the kart championship, which he started in 1995. And he actually started with the team that Gilles de Ferran is now racing for, Walker Racing Team. Before that, of course, Christian raced in Formula One. He raced in 92 with Minardi and in 93, and then in 1994 joined the Arrows Footwork team. Never really quite had the car, perhaps, like many people like yourself, David, that justified his talents in Formula One, and has really looked for that new opening, the new career in this form of motorsport.
For sure. Christian, obviously in the junior ranks, looked very strong, and then got to Formula One, never quite gotten a winning car. He's gone to Indy cars, and you know, starting to show what it's all about. And you can see there's a lot of people, obviously drivers, team crew, are wondering how Christian is. And also, you know, that's probably the first big impact that Swift have witnessed on their cars. So obviously they'll be quite keen to have a look at the car, and it looks like it's done its job. There's no doubt about that. So they'll be obviously pleased that the car's held up fairly well.
Yes, I mean, however you look at that, that was a very heavy impact.
Yeah, it was very big.
Very high speed.
They would have been in top gear, just coming up to top gear there. So, you know, very fast, and
we're talking speeds around about 160, 170
yeah,
miles an hour.
160 miles an hour. And the angle that he went in, you know, nearly 90 degrees. So obviously it was quite an impact, and the car looked like it did its job.
That's right. Well, let's just hope that Christian is not too badly hurt, as I say, around his feet and ankles. But the main thing, he is basically okay. He's out of the car and being looked after by the safety team now. There's Mark Blundell chatting to teammate Maurizio Gugelmin. I don't know whether he had a view of that. I think he was actually slightly ahead, because those two were running quite strongly. They were in that group. The top four had pulled away a little bit. But good to see Mark looking fairly relaxed, much happier after qualifying yesterday. He was much relieved man, because he hadn't really got the car to his liking in the practice up to that point. And he really just got in the car, went for the time, and produced a very, very good result to qualify in 5th place. And in fact, did exactly the same time as the man who qualified in 4th position, Greg Moore. They qualified to within 1/1000th of a second to each other, a 1:36.754, and Greg Moore only getting the nod on 4th place on the grid, because his next best lap was actually a fraction faster than Mark Blundell's. But a good effort that from Blundell. Gugelmin backing him up in the Pac West race team with 8th position, and that team looking strong this year. They've got the Reynard, the Mercedes engines, and the Firestone tyres, which is important as well. So it's looking like a good package for those guys.
Yes, it is. It's you know, the Reynards, the Firestone tyres. I mean, I'm very impressed with what Firestone have done in the last couple of years. And the thing about success is that you've got to have everything right. You've got to have the tyres right, the chassis right, the engine, the team. The driver's got to be in good shape and, you know, mentally prepared for the job. And if you've got that ingredients, then you know, it just makes you a winner.
One of the things on that is that Mark's working with a new race engineer this year, and that's probably taking a little bit of time just to settle in as a relationship. It's such a key part of motor racing, isn't it? That relationship you as a driver have with your engineer.
That's right. It's probably more important than your actual marriage, I suppose, because you've all got to really trust each other, and if you've got that working relationship, then obviously that's going to make a lot of success for you, and that's so important for racing.
Jimmy Vasser just out of the car there, but we're going to take the opportunity to take another break here on Eurosport. Join us back for IndyCars Live. Surfers Paradise, the Gold Coast here in Australia, the venue for round 2 of the PPG Kart World Series.
Are we seeing Michael's replay on board?
And Michael Andretti just down there.
Okay.
Michael Andretti, who had that very, very good view of what went on ahead of him, with teammate Christian Fittipaldi crashing with Gilles de Ferran. Fittipaldi hitting the wall extremely hard. That can't have settled him at all, David. It's not a particularly nice situation. He had to take some fairly serious avoiding action. What sort of state's Michael going to be in now?
Well, he'll be obviously concerned about Christian, but also at the same time he'll be trying to block it out really as much as possible, because, you know, in harsh reality he's still got a job to do, and he'll be obviously trying to shut that out and just concentrate on the job, but there'll be a lot of concerns.
Parker Johnston there. He was another man who might actually ironically benefit from all this, because he was hit by Scott Pruitt in the opening lap, got it all very sideways, ended up with a puncture, we thought, because he dropped right back. But now, of course, he's going to have another opportunity to try and make up for that. And Brian Herter, we're also looking at his car down there. Brian Herter, who's qualified down in 16th place. He survived that first lap fracas, but the question is, can he work his way up from that position on the grid? Still the drivers waiting to get the news on how long the delay is going to be. The car being towed away, but there was quite a lot of debris down there, wasn't there, David? So that's obviously going to take some time.
Yeah, there's a lot of debris down there for, you know, all the guys going through, so obviously the teams will be quite keen to look. There you can see Pruitt's gone on the inside trying to get through, and Parker's saved it brilliantly, but then I think he's in trouble. He's either got damaged suspension or a flat tyre, but they didn't, looking at the pictures, they don't seem to be working on the car in a hurry, so maybe it was just a flat tyre.
Yes, maybe just a quick tyre change, and that's the situation resolved. Mo Nunn there in the picture, the guy in the target shirt just to slight left of the picture. He's the race engineer for Alex Zanardi, a very famous race engineer as well in IndyCar circles. He's been there for years, worked with many of the top drivers, and the relationship, again, we're coming back to that relationship between engineer and driver, and that relationship between Mo Nunn, the sort of older man, the elder statesman now of this form of racing, and Alex, the youngster, really seems to be gelling.
That's for sure. That's probably part of the success. You know, Mo Nunn's been around for a long time. He's one of the best in the business, and Alex will be learning so much from him, and again, gaining a lot of confidence with it at the same time, which is probably the most important ingredient for actually winning races. Yeah, confidence, the main factor. So Alex seems to be on a high in that particular case. Just had a quick view of Patrick Carpentier there, the young French-Canadian. Qualified 21st, had all sorts of problems with oil leaks, etc.
That Christian Fittipaldi had. Now, he will come into the frame here. Of course, there's no way to slow the car because he's already torn the left side and the front off the car.
Well, then we could just hear a bit of analysis on the accident. And, well, Christian Fittipaldi being taken back to the medical centre. As soon as we have any news on Christian's condition, we will be getting information through from the officials. So we'll let you know. Just as soon as we have any information, we'll let you know the situation for Christian. But obviously we saw him basically okay. He was out. They got him out of the car. It looks as though he may well have hurt his feet in some way, his ankles, but basically Christian looks as though he was okay. So let's hope that he's able to recover quickly from that. We've only got a week until the next race, so let's hope that they can that he is okay. We've got Long Beach next weekend. It's really a very, very busy part of the program for the teams at the moment. They have had a 5-week gap between the first race at Homestead and this race at Surfers Paradise. Quick view there of Paul Tracy waiting to get back out. And then they've just got 7 days again, and they're at it again, and it's less than 7 days because they've got to transport all the equipment, and it's a 24-hour flight between this part of Australia and Los Angeles. So that's really got the teams. They're going to be working hard this week.
Yeah, it's a very tight schedule, and they'll be working very hard after the race to make sure that the cars are in good shape for Long Beach. And obviously Christian, if he has damaged his legs, obviously won't be racing. If it was an oval, perhaps he might be able to do it with a sore left leg or something, which has done, I've seen that happen before, people getting into the car with crutches. But on a road course like that, it's very tough on the feet.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, some of the famous stories, and we've seen people like A.J. Foyt. I remember he had a huge accident at Road America several years ago now, and he really broke his legs badly, but he was sort of back out in the car as soon as possible, as you say, getting out off the crutches into the car to go and qualify at Indianapolis. Remarkable from these guys. But of course, in the oval, the pedal pressure's not nearly so high. It's all about very smooth movements on the pedals. On the street course like Long Beach, it's a hell of a load on the legs, with the heavy braking that's going on all the time, and working the clutch a bit. How much will these guys be working the clutch? That much?
With a sequential gearbox, they won't be using the clutch going up the gears. Some use the clutch going down the gears, some don't. Depends from driver to driver. If it was myself, then I would always use the clutch. It helps the timing for when you enter the corner.
Alonso Jr. there, the man starting 17th on the grid, and he needs something fairly miraculous to try and work his way up the order a little bit. Just another view again of that incredible explosion of racing car parts as Christian Fittipaldi. You can see his chassis crossing from left to right there, almost hidden by the car of Maurizio Gugelmin. But that was the accident that has stopped this race, and let's hope we'll be getting things underway again soon. Welcome back as we continue our coverage of what's been going on here in Australia. This is a view again of the accident, and it was contact between Gilles de Ferran and Christian Fittipaldi. And in fact, Gilles de Ferran's been talking and said that that's basically what happened. He touched the back of Christian's car, and that's what set this huge accident in motion. Again, though, still a bit tricky to see exactly where they touched and what happened.
Yeah, from what I can see, which is not very much, but you can see that they were going down the straight, and Gilles obviously tried to go around the outside, and you could see the pit wall just narrowed up, and there was just no more room, and then they ended up touching. So, just got a bit too close, and unfortunately caused quite a large accident.
Bobby Rahal keeping an eye on things at the moment, looking fairly relaxed. The 3 times champion, now the elder statesman of the drivers, but also a very important man in terms of running his team, and that's the team that Brian Herter drives for as well. But Bobby Rahal still very, very competitive driver. There's Paul Tracy, still just relaxing a little bit before that front row start, before he gets it underway again. And second place in Homestead, the opening race of the championship. Good performance yesterday, as we were saying earlier on. Paul Tracy looking in good form. That's Greg Moore, the other Canadian, and he's had a 3rd place finish here last year, and looking to try and go better than that. Firestone last year rather dominated proceedings. They had a 1-2-3 finish, but going by the qualifying results at least, Goodyear up there this time, with Goodyear of Paul Tracy in 2nd place. Having said that, after that, they're mainly Firestone tired cars in the top 10. We've got Firestone cars from 3rd place, Jimmy Vasser, down to 8th place, Maurizio Gugelmin, and the next Goodyear tired car is in fact Christian Fittipaldi in 9th place, and then Bobby Rahal in 10th. So certainly from qualifying, Firestone had the edge, but as we saw in Homestead to a certain extent, as you mentioned earlier, David, the Goodyear tyre sometimes is stronger later on in the race, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but Goodyear have responded. They've responded in Formula One, they've responded in Indy cars, and they've certainly closed that gap on Firestone.
One more view, this time again from onboard Christian. If only, in a way, if he'd hit that first wall, he would have been much better off, but because he then crossed the pit lane, that meant that he went in at quite a different angle. If he'd just been a few feet more to the left earlier on, he would have made it much more of a glancing blow across that first wall.
Yeah, I think they've actually walled, but I think because Gilles there, it's actually forced them both into that sort of side and into the wall, and Christian being there in front of him has obviously sort of saved the impact on Gilles' car, but not for Christian.
So, and then Andretti able to take the escape road down here, which was just as well, and that made he was able to avoid the wreck of Fittipaldi's car. Andre Ribeiro there, he had an accident this morning in the warm-up. In fact, damaged the nose cone of the Tasman Lola against the wall. Nothing too serious. He was 7th fastest in the warm-up, so it was not a bad effort from the Lola driver. And top Lolas are run by Tasman Motorsports, of course, as we're just taking another look. This is at the full speed, So you can just see how quickly things go wrong when they do go wrong. That's the thing about racing at this level. When things go wrong, they go wrong so quickly. And that, again, there at proper speed, you see how quickly Andretti had to react.
Well, here is Gilles de Ferran. Gilles, tell us what happened.
Well, I was beside Christian here going down the straight, and maybe he didn't see me, but I ended up touching him and the wall at the same time. And, you know, it was a pretty big accident. I just hope he's okay.
And from your own standpoint now, your crew is scrambling. They're going to restart this race, and you'll go to the backup car?
Yeah, thank God I feel okay, so we should be able to restart the race.
Have you had laps in that backup car this weekend?
Yes, we ran a little bit on Friday, and they seems to be fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now let's go to Jack R02 standing by with Michael Andretti.
Shrapnel from your teammate. It got wild out there, Michael.
Yeah, it was really scary. I was really scary for Christian. You know, it looked really bad. Hopefully he'll be okay.
Now, it got some of your antennas. You've replaced them, but you were just saying just moments ago you thought it was going to be a bad break for Paul Tracy, but now you found out it's a complete restart, so it becomes a moot point.
Well, we'll see if it's a complete restart. We're still going to protest that because I don't believe that it should be.
One of the things Michael's upset about, guys, is the fact that he felt that a complete lap had been...
Well, that's interesting. Michael Andretti feeling that it shouldn't be a complete restart, feeling that a lap been completed already, and they should therefore start with the positions they were at the end of the first lap. It sounds as though there's going to be a little bit of contention about that, but no doubt they'll have to try and sort that out. That could cause further delays as they wait to get this race underway. We had sort of scoring and delays in Homestead when they tried to get the cars sorted out after yellow flags there. Perhaps we're going to have similar problems here. Well, it strikes me that that accident happened fairly early on, and I wouldn't have thought that the whole field would have completed the first lap.
Well, no, there was obviously there was quite a few cars behind that accident when the race was stopped. So it's going to be, you know, it's very touch and go because it was on the start-finish line, so there's going to be a lot of controversy.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see exactly. Scott Pruitt sitting down there waiting to get this race underway again, starting in 7th place. He was the man involved in that bit of contact with Parker Johnston, but looking very strong from this morning's warm-up. The Patrick Run Brahma Sports team, he and Raul Bazell, they only switched to Reynards quite late on over the winter season. Just coming back to the story of Lola. Of course, Lola in the news just last week because their Formula One project has folded. Very sadly, very early on in the season, they went to Melbourne, failed to qualify there, didn't go to Brazil, and the announcement made that the Lola Formula One project all finished. David, that's big news, but the important, in some ways for them, the important thing is that they maintain everything else they've got, because it's very easy to forget just how much Lola are involved with.
Yeah, it's a very big company, and they deal with a lot of race cars all around the world, and you know, this may actually help the IndyCar situation because they'll be sort of a bit sore after the Formula One disaster, and they'll be putting probably a lot more effort to make sure that their Lola customers are kept happy, and obviously their aim is to get more customers for next year.
Well, they need them because they've lost out a lot in terms of sales to Reynard over the winter. They've got the Swift that's come along, won the first race, and Lola suddenly have they've got some catching up to do. It's ironic really, because last year Michael Andretti had a really strong year driving a Lola, driving for Newman Haas last year. And Michael Andretti won as many races as anybody, won more races than anybody else, and ended up finishing second in the championship, had 5 victories. And yet the Lola car is not the one to drive this year. It's amazing how fickle sometimes the racing market can be, but perhaps, as you say, it was a question of people worried about the Formula One project and how that would detract from everything else.
I think the fact that the Newman Haas team aren't using Lolas is a major factor, because a team like that could really help Lola at this situation, but because they've moved to Swift, Tasman are sort of, you know, the sort of ones that are trying to get Lola up and running properly, and when you've just got the one strong team like that, it's not as good as having 2 strong teams.
Well, they've made some good changes over the testing period between Homestead and this race. They've stiffened up the car, and they're much happier with the performance for Andre Ribeiro and Adrian Fernandez. So we'll just have to hope that those improvements continue. We're going to take another break as the drivers get ready for a restart, hopefully fairly soon now. The live coverage from the Gold Coast as we're waiting for the race to get underway again. The first lap accident, the end of the first lap, the accident between Christian Fittipaldi and Gilles de Ferran, putting a stop to the race. And initial reports say that Christian has broken his right leg. So that's sad news, of course, but it could have been a lot worse than that by the size of that impact. Yeah, for sure. You know, that was a very large impact. It could have done a lot of damage to his feet. Obviously, the monocoque has done its job, and you know, it's not very good that Christian has broken his leg, but you're right, it could have been a lot worse. So now the drivers beginning to get themselves back in the cars and get ready for the restart of this race. And let's hope that we don't get a repeat of that sort of incident straight away. Paul Tracy there, getting into the Penske. He'll be starting from the outside of the front row. A former winner here when he was driving for Newman Haas in the Lola, in fact. But Penske have yet to win this race, interestingly enough. And everybody else now beginning to get into their cars, helmeted up, ready to go. It's a huge event, this one, in Australia, David. I mean, over the 3 days, I think they have something like 200,000 people coming along to actually spectate and watch the race, and a huge corporate presence as well. This part of Australia, it is pretty much a tourist area, isn't it? Yes, it's very touristy. There's particularly a lot of Japanese people down there. They actually own a lot of the land down there. They've bought it all up. Obviously, it's a lot cheaper than Japan. But and here we are looking at some of the local colouring. Yeah, there's some of my old friends. Yeah, that makes you feel like you're missing the place, no doubt. Yeah, it does a bit, but yeah, there's a lot of tourist attractions up there as well. You know, there's SeaWorld just up the road. There's Dream World. There's Wet and Wild. There's Movie World. You know, it's totally catered for the tourist up there. Yes, I made a quick visit to Movie World. Had a look around. It was all good fun with the bits and pieces that go on there, and but it's a great area as well, isn't it? It's not just a tourist area. I mean, there's some great scenery around. It's a great place to live as well. I mean, the members of your family live in that part of the world and seem very settled there. Yeah, my two brothers live out there, Jeffrey and Gary, and my dad spends quite a bit of time when he's in Australia, because not far out of there, about half an hour's drive out, is the Tambourine Mountains, which is just a beautiful part of the world. Well, it's a good place to go racing, and a lot of these drivers will have taken advantage of that, coming over to Australia to spend a little bit of time holidaying. Maurizio Gugelmin, amongst others, who came out a bit earlier to spend some time and relax a little bit. With that 5-week gap between races, they've had the opportunity, although many of the teams have been busy testing in the meantime as well, of course. So, but it's a good place to come for the race. And then, of course, they get really on with the rest of the program after this race, with next week Long Beach, and then basically the championship continuing more or less every 2 weeks. So they've had their break. That's it. They've got to get on with some hard work now. Yeah, it's a very tough season for the Indy
Steve
guys.
Olvey, who's the car medical director. Steve, can you give us the official update on Christian?
Christian has a broken right lower leg, will require surgery later. He has no other injuries. Otherwise, he's doing very well, but he does have a broken leg.
And guys, right now he's going to be transferred to a nearby.
Well, that's the news then from the main man himself, the boss of the kart safety team, the medical boss, Dr. Steve Olvey. And, well, as you heard, that's the way it is. And as we said, it could have been worse, but obviously it looks as though Christian's going to be out for some time. And let's just hope and wish him a very speedy recovery as quickly as possible. Let's hope he gets back out for the Newman Haas team and back out in the Swift car. But we've got the race to run here still. I'm sure the spirits will have been dampened a little bit. There's Jimmy Vasser. It's pretty easy to tell Jimmy because he wears those very, very characteristic glasses. See a lot more drivers in this form of racing wearing glasses than we do in Formula One, don't we? Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? I don't know whether it's because Formula One drivers should be wearing glasses but don't feel they can be seen wearing glasses. I don't know, but yeah, Bobby Rahal, well, Jacques Villeneuve, he wears glasses, doesn't he? And he's not that slow, is he? No, he's not, is he? I mean, vision is always supposed to be one of the most important aspects of great racing drivers. It's a key feature of many of the great racing drivers is they have absolutely incredible vision. Ayrton Senna was another one. Fangio, legend has it that he had the most incredible vision. But I remember reading in one of Jackie Stewart's pieces that he feels that, you know, with modern technology, with glasses as they are these days, there's no reason, if you've got good vision with glasses, there's no reason why you shouldn't be as quick as somebody who's got good vision without them. No, I don't. I really don't believe it makes any difference at all. You know, if you've got glasses or you haven't got glasses, Paul Tracy normally wears glasses, but he's got contact lenses in by the looks of things, and it makes no difference at all. Contact lenses can cause a little bit of a problem. You were talking about that a little bit yesterday, particularly on a street track. Yeah, I would, I thought that would be a bit difficult because of the dust on the track be getting into the eyes, but obviously it's not a problem. I don't wear them, so it's difficult for me to say, but obviously Paul Tracy's quite confident without them. certainly some drivers have that problem occasionally, getting dust in, and of course that causes major problems. So that's perhaps why drivers tend to use glasses more than contact lenses, and it just depends on personal preferences, really. As you say, Jack Villeneuve, sometimes he seems to wear contact lenses, sometimes he seems to wear glasses, just depending on the track and the conditions, etc. Scott Pruitt there, thumbs up. He's ready to go. Wants to get on with the action here, and let's hopefully we get a chance. You see he's banging his head around. You were talking about the head protection. They've actually got even more on the head protection this year. They've actually got this piece that goes sort of horseshoe shape right around the driver's head. They actually have to take that out every time the driver gets in and out of the car now.
Yeah, well, you know, every year they are looking at ways to make the cars safer, and this is part of that program. And you know, it's actually, I've got into a Formula 1 car with all that around my head, and it's a little bit uncomfortable at first, having something so close to you, but after a few laps you don't even think about it and you just get used to it.
Well, the wind's picking up a little bit as well, but the fans are enjoying themselves at the moment. A little bit of cloud around, as you can see. Let's hope that the rain stays away. We certainly don't want to repeat of the race that we had a few years ago when it started raining. Delays meant that the race actually sort of finished in the dark by the time it was all over. That was when Michael Andretti won the race in the Reynard back in 1994. We certainly wouldn't want to repeat of that, but certainly there's still a fair bit of sunshine around as well, poking its way through the cloud. So hopefully we'll be in for a good afternoon's racing. Down on the grid once more with Maurizio Gugelmin in the Pac West car. A leaner, fitter looking Maurizio Gugelmin this year, no doubt about that. He's lost a fair bit of weight over the winter, got into a fairly serious training program, and looking hungry for success. Qualified extremely well at Homestead, not quite so well here. He's qualified in 8th place, but another very consistent runner, and somebody who's due a win, I would say, in this form of racing.
Yeah, Maurizio's a good driver, and you know, he's probably very happy now that he's got the right, you know, chassis, engine, tyre combination, which seems to be the winning combination, and that'll be giving him a lot of motivation, a lot of confidence. He looks like he's worked very hard over the winter with his fitness, which is so important for success. And you know, let's see. I mean, it could be his weekend this weekend. You never know.
Well, he does go well here. I mean, he was 6th place here in 1994, finished 4th in 95, and 4th again last year. So that's a pretty good run of results on this track. He obviously does like the circuit, goes well here, feels relaxed here as well, and that's a major part of it. There's Bobby Rahal just getting ready to go. He's had a couple of good results here as well in the past, but never actually won this race. So he'd love to make up for that. Was second here to Paul Tracy in 1995. That was the year that Andretti was leading for much of the race, lost second gear towards the end, and then crashed on the very last lap when he was being caught by Bobby Rahal and several others in his attempts to stay ahead with no second gear. It all went sadly wrong for Andretti at the end, and Rahal finished in 2nd position. But the car's beginning to get fired up now. This is good news, so the race should be getting underway very soon. Once again, the official starter getting the cars positioned correctly from the pit lane here, and then they'll bring them round onto the circuit again, pace laps behind the course car, and then get the race started once more. Michael Andretti in the Swift, starting down in 12th place, as we mentioned. Well, there's a couple of cars that won't be. Well, there's only really one car, I think, that won't be on the grid. Watch out for the car of Gilles de Ferran. They said they were going to get the backup car out there, and so hopefully Gilles will be taking up his position in the Valvoline car. He should be in 11th place, just around, but there he is, just behind Rahal. Round 2 of the PPG Kart World Series then is about to get underway once more following the accident to Christian Fittipaldi that unfortunately seeing Christian break his leg and out of the race. We are now going to see the race restarted with Alex Zanardi leading Paul Tracy. They've lined up in grid order, and it's going to be a complete restart for the 65 laps. On board with Jimmy Vasser, the reigning champion and defending champion of this race. He won this race in dominant fashion last year. The package of Reynard, Honda and Firestone tyres was really the one to have. And you're looking back from the pole sitter now. Alex Zanardi looking straight back at the Penske of Paul Tracy. And they would so much love to win a race, Penske. They went winless last season, and that's a bit of a shock to the system for somebody like Roger Penske. He's used to the odd victory or two. In fact, quite a lot of victories throughout the course of the season. I can imagine there's been a lot of work going on in the team to get things sorted.
Roger Penske is one smooth operator, and I believe that he's spending a lot of time now with the race team to make sure that that gets back up to winning ways, because he's a very busy man. Here again we see the big accident. You can see the safety fence has done its job, because if that went into the crowd, that could have caused some just real serious damage.
Yeah, the debris fencing a vital part, very high, and as it's tilted in as well to prevent things going over the top. But the height of that wheel, just the sheer energy that's involved in an accident like that, just amazing.
Yes, it is, you know, the inertia of everything, and you can see that wheel just fly straight up into the air, and you can see the crowd on the right-hand side. It was just lucky that that's bouncing down the middle of the track and not through the middle of the crowd.
That's right, yes, and that's always the one of the most scary things. That it's got a whole suspension unit attached to it as well. There's a lot of weight in that, even though they might be light alloy racing wheels. Once that thing starts flying around, there's a huge amount of energy involved, and well, let's just make lucky stars that it didn't, as you say, David, go over and into the crowd. Well, the car's now warming up tyres a little bit, weaving around. We're over the back part of the circuit. We're going through the chicane. This is a chicane that Nigel Mansell used to enjoy when he was here, winner of this race back in 1993 when he came into the championship, and a lot of the time that he managed to gain on everybody else, taking pole position for that race and then winning it, was through that very chicane. He was remarkably quick through there, a feature noted by many observers at the time, and Zanardi himself looked pretty damn quick through there yesterday as he went on towards his pole position lap. So the car's almost completing their formation laps here, and we should be getting this race underway in just a few moments. The view back from Alex Zanardi's pole sitting Reynard Honda, then Paul Tracy in second position, Jimmy Vasser in third place. This race will be started in a few minutes, and we will then get the action underway. Can Zanardi take victory from pole position? He's had 6 pole positions in a row. From the 6 poles so far, he's had 2 victories towards the end of last year. Didn't win the race at Homestead, of course. Dropped back a little bit in the overall running. Still managed to score results, score points, which will be important to him as he goes into this series as one of the pre-season favourites. Finished in 7th place in the end at Homestead. So scored points, but he won't have been as pleased with that as he would have liked to have been. He wants to go out and score race wins. You can just see Dario Franchitti going through the picture, by the way, just down there in 13th position, the Scotsman. But coming back to Zanardi, he really needs a top result here, a podium finish, to get his championship campaign up and running. With the likes of Michael Andretti, Paul Tracy and Jimmy Vasser scoring well in Homestead, he can't afford to let them get away, can he?
No, he can't. He's obviously got to score well at the beginning like Jimmy did last season, didn't he? He was very strong, and that's probably what won him the championship. The first half of the season, he won a lot of races and was very consistent. But that's the beauty of IndyCar racing, isn't it? You can't really tell who's going to win the race. It's so exciting all the way up to the end, and that's what makes this sort of racing great racing.
It is, because, you know, we've got down to 12th place, Michael Andretti. Really, any of those guys down to 12th place could win this race. There's nothing that says they can't. We had, just looking at the times from yesterday, a second covering the top 9 cars. Not bad at all. I mean, that's a pretty competitive performance when you look at Formula One, where you often have an advantage for the top team. In Williams' case, often an advantage of, say, half a second, just back from them back to the next car. And we've got a second covering the top 9 cars here.
Well, a lot of the teams have got the very similar cars, so obviously that makes for closer racing. It's like probably 10 teams having the Williams car, you know, but one team doing slightly better than everyone else. But that doesn't guarantee constant success. You know, the teams there are working on cars that are very similar. They'll be trying very hard to get just that little bit more, and that's what makes it very close on the grid. And when the race comes, with all the yellow flag situations that they have with the pace car, then you really don't know what's going to happen till the end of the race, which, you know, that's what the fans go to see.
Great view overhead there of the beach running alongside the track here, and Adrian Fernandez was making the point that it's really quite amazing to be at a track, a unique track, with driving next to the beach alongside all these high-rise buildings. He said he was saying that he had a problem with his car one time, ended up walking along the beach back to the pits. He said, well, he'd never really experienced that anywhere else, you know, actually walking along the beach back to the pits to go and explain it all to the race team. Quite a different place here. The view overhead, surface paradise as the cars continue round on their formation lap, and then to restart this race following the accident to Gilles de Ferran and Christian Fittipaldi. Good to see de Ferran's back out there though in the spare car. Christian out of action with a broken right leg that is requiring surgery later on, as we heard a little earlier, but apart from that, unhurt, and let's hope and wish him a very speedy recovery and get him back out into the race series as soon as possible. But Alex Zanardi leads the cars around, Paul Tracy in second place. It's a fairly popular track, this one. Michael Andretti, for example, talking about it, he was saying that the curbs, a little bit like we were talking yesterday, David, just he was talking about how important getting the curbs right here, using them correctly, and how you've got to hit them just right. And in fact, Raul Boesel was talking about how to set the car up. He was saying they actually disconnect the anti-roll bars to try and stop the car jumping too much when you hit the curbs.
Yes, they do that a lot in Indy cars. They do disconnect the front and the rear anti-roll bar, which obviously helps the support of the car. There's not a lot of fast corners, so they don't need that support. So obviously that's what they're gaining for, is mechanical grip. They've got to go through, like as we saw, Zanardi going through there for qualifying. He really attacked that chicane, and he got through there okay. The thing is, it just gives you a little bit more space on the exit, and you're allowed to go through the corner a lot faster, and you know that's what you've got to do.
Just looking at the race as this, you can see the pit window, 2 stops. We're likely to see the first one around lap 20 and the second stop around lap 44. Jimmy Vasser, the defending champion here, and 65 laps of this 2.7 mile track to undergo to decide the second winner of the season and to take the championship through to its next phase, with the Long Beach race coming up next weekend as well. Michael Andretti starting from 12th place. There he is on board with him. We had some great on-board pictures with Michael in qualifying yesterday, and let's look forward to more of the same in the race itself. It is a dramatic circuit in many ways, with these chicanes and curves to clamber over. Some overtaking opportunities as well into some of these 90-degree corners, but you have to be brave to overtake here. There's no doubt Michael Andretti is one of the bravest when it comes to racing, and we'll just have to watch his progress from 12th position. Now then, it looks to me as though the cars are getting ready to start this race. Bit of speed beginning to come up, bit more heat into the tyres, and Zanardi just guiding them around now.
Yes, obviously the important thing is to get the heat into the tyres for the restart, so when you go into the first corner you've got some grip, but you've got to be warming those brakes up as well.
So ready for the restart. Alex Zanardi, Paul Tracy on the front row, Jimmy Vasser and Greg Moore on the second row. Oh, it's a bit messy. And they go green. Let's hope it stays green. Was that a clean enough start? Well, it's a green flag. Vasser gets blocked. Greg Moore goes up into third place. Vasser tried to get past Tracy, but it didn't come off. Breaking into the first corner. Cold brakes, cold tyres. Is everybody going to make it through the first chicane safely? Well, the leaders get through safely. Zanardi keeps it under control beautifully there. Tracy in second place. Greg Moore in third. Jimmy Vasser in fourth. And Parker Johnston in fifth position. He'll be watching his mirrors to see if Scott Pruitt is around again, as he was on the first start. And in fact, Pruitt's not next up. It looks like Maurizio Gugelmin next up. Pruitt's just got past Mark Blundell, and Blundell's lost out a bit on this restart. He's further down than he was first lap around when we had the initial start, but Zanardi's done exactly what he did last time and made the initial break.
Well, it was actually very smart from Zanardi, because on the restart you could just see that Zanardi went forward, then Tracy went forward, then he backed off. Tracy had to back off, and as soon as he backed off, he just nailed it and he was gone. And Jimmy Vasser then got by, but then he got caught, and then Greg Moore got him. Was a great start.
Yeah, very well organised by Alex Zanardi. The pole sitter has the advantage of dictating the pace. It's exactly what he did. And Zanardi the advantage over Tracy. Greg Moore in the blue and white. Then Jimmy Vasser and Maurizio Gugelmin passing Parker Johnston. And it looks as though Johnston may well lose the place to Scott Pruitt as well. He went quite wide to allow Gugelmin the space. Let's have a look. Yes, and indeed Pruitt's got through. Mark Blundell is now following Johnston, and then Bobby Rahal is just behind Mark Blundell. So Blundell's now the next one to try and get past the green and white car of Parker Johnston. Perhaps he's still got some sort of trouble with it, or perhaps he's just not really got it dialed in for the early laps so far. Some of these guys will be running the slightly softer tyre. It looks as though Zanardi and Tracy are running the softer option tyres from both Firestone and Goodyear respectively, but we know that Scott Pruitt is on the harder tyre, Bobby Rahal as well, of their respective tyre companies. So we're going to see some changes throughout the course of the race as that begins to tell, and that will tell as we get towards each of the pit stops. That's when we've got to look for the performance drop-off of those guys on the softer tyres. You're on board with Michael Andretti, and of course working his way up. Let's have a look. He's still in 12th place at the end of that first lap, right behind Gilles de Ferran. And well, in fact, that hasn't been updated yet. They still have Fittipaldi on the list, and that hasn't been updated. So that leaderboard only really applied to the top 6 cars that have already come through. Rahal has got Michael Andretti right behind him, and in fact he is ahead of Gilles de Ferran. So what can Michael Andretti do now to work his way up the order? It's not going to be easy, but if anybody can do it, Michael Andretti's your man.
Oh, certainly. He's very aggressive, and he's very good coming up through the field, as he showed at Homestead.
So now Andretti challenging Bobby Rahal. These two have certainly done a lot of racing over the years, battling against one another. 10th position for Michael Andretti at the moment. And then Gilles de Ferran having to settle himself in a little bit again. And it looks as though it could be Franchitti just behind de Ferran. We'll try and get a clearer view of that in a moment. Dario Franchitti, who started in 13th place. Yes, it is Franchitti just behind Gilles de Ferran into his second race now. And across the line they go. Still Alex Zanardi is the race leader. Paul Tracy in 2nd position. Greg Moore in 3rd place. And Jimmy Vasser in 4th position. Things beginning to settle down just a little bit now, as the leaders try and get into their rhythm for the race, and then try and get some idea not only on the tyre wear, but how the car's handling as well, because there are the options, of course, to make little adjustments to the car once they come into their stops.
Yes, that's right. They're very quick with the wing changes. They can change the gurney flap at the back, and they can change the wing angle at the front, and they may have even if they've got roll bars, they can also adjust the roll bars from inside the cockpit. But what will be interesting, it's 30-degree heat out there. The track temperature is the most important, and that could be in the high 40s. So people running on soft tyres would have to really look after their tyres.
Yes, that's right. It'll make a key difference as we go through the race. Watching the battle between Maurizio Guterman and Scott Pruitt at the moment. Guterman in the red and white car with Scott Pruitt right behind him. And keep an eye on Scott Pruitt, fastest in the warm-up as we mentioned earlier. He qualified in Raul Boesel's spare car yesterday. Pruitt's had all sorts of bad luck with his car over the weekend so far. Had problems with his race car on Friday. Switched to his backup for Saturday qualifying. Had an electrical problem with that in qualifying. Had to get back to the pits, get out in Raul Boesel's spare car, and it still did a good job, still qualified at 7th place with the pedals in the wrong place, the gear lever in the wrong place, and generally pretty uncomfortable in the car. So a good effort that from Pruitt, and it's clear that now he's back in his own car, he's feeling more at home, and he's beginning to put Guterman under some pressure. But also under pressure is Greg Moore. The blue car of Greg Moore, the Canadian, 21 years old, is under pressure from the reigning champion Jimmy Vasser now, as Vasser wants to make up for that start where he just got caught behind Paul Tracy. That allowed Greg Moore through, but now the question is, can he get past Greg Moore? He's a hard and feisty racer, and it's not going to be very easy for Vasser to find a way through.
No, Greg Moore's obviously driving very hard. You can see he's driving aggressively, so obviously he's got to watch his tyres. Jimmy will be just sitting there watching him, just pacing himself, because that's the sort of driver he is, because he knows at the end of the race he wants to be in the best shape.
Yes, long way to go yet. So Zanardi rips off one of the tear-off visors, and Tracy in 2nd place. Well, he's more likely to pick up the rubbish from Zanardi's car. That's the great thing about being clear out in front. Don't have to worry about following in the slipstream of anybody else, picking up the rubbish that's thrown up by the other car. But Tracy's looking pretty much on the pace at the moment, which is good news for the Penske team. The car was obviously working in oval trim, but at Homestead they were running quite a different aerodynamic setup. They had new rules for this year. They had to run the car with very little downforce, with very small wings. The cars are in quite different configuration here for Surfers Paradise. It's almost like a different car in some ways. The chassis is the same, but the rest of the configuration is so different, it could almost be a different car.
Yes, it is a different car. It's set up so differently because, you know, they've got tyre stagger and all the springs and dampers will be completely different. They used to have different side pods, and the whole car was changed. I'm not 100% sure if that still happens.
I think there's still detailed changes on the ducting for the radiators for the street circuits, but it means with the amount of downforce that they're providing from the front and rear wings on this type of track that the balance of the car can change completely. But from Penske's point of view, they'll be relieved and happy to see that in race trim with a full tank of fuel, that Tracy's car is keeping the pace with Alex Zanardi. Tracy went reasonably well in the warm-up this morning, but it wasn't anything particularly special. So it did leave a question mark at that time as to whether the car would perform in race trim. Alonso Jr. had some problems. He was actually last in the warm-up this morning. But at the moment, I have to say that Penske's looking fairly good. Yeah, it is looking strong, and of course, you know, they're going to be coming up to some back markers soon, so that'll certainly turn a twist to the race. Yes, that's right. On board with Jimmy Vasser then. Let's just concentrate on the onboard pictures for a moment and look at this circuit again. One of the faster street tracks in terms of straight line speed, because there are some fairly long straights here, but then you've really got to anchor up to the corners. Yes, you can see that chicane. They enter that chicane very fast. And obviously, as you come out of that chicane, you've really got to have good traction, because that's really the only place you can really pass, is obviously get a good traction in front compared to the bloke in front of you and see if you can outbrake him. But it's very difficult on this track. And the surface is not most straightforward either, is it? No, it's not, but you know, the inside line no one uses, so if you're going to make that inside move, you've got to judge it perfectly. Well, let's just stay with Vasser for a moment. Coming up to cross the start-finish line here now. Up to about 180 miles an hour, then hard on the brakes and down into this first chicane. Threads his way through and then hard on the power once more and up through the gears. Just one gear before the second chicane. And then another blast down towards the two 90-degree left-handers. Just braking a little bit on the curve here as you're braking into this next left-hander. That doesn't make life any easier either. No, but you know, Jimmy's doing a good job. You can see he's very smooth on the wheel. He's looking after his car and his tyres, and you can just see he's down changing nicely. He's sort of in a good 5 laps. Alex Zanardi leads, Tracy in second place, and Greg Moore in third, with Jimmy Vasser fourth. Michael Andretti still stuck there in 10th place at the moment. So Zanardi, Tracy, with Tracy a little closer by the looks of things this time. They've pulled away a bit from Greg Moore, who's in turn dropped back. Now Pruitt still putting Guterman under pressure. And this is looking like the battle to watch at the moment between the Brazilian former Grand Prix driver Maurizio Guterman in the Pac West Reynard Mercedes with the Firestone tyres, and Scott Pruitt, very much a man who's come up through the ranks of motorsport in America, very much a sports car man in past years as well, and he's driving in the Reynard with a Ford engine, Ford Cosworth Power, the new Ford Cosworth Power for this year, making the drivers a lot happier than they were last year, that's for sure. And Scott Pruitt very happy with the Cosworth XD, the power and the reliability, probably more importantly. And he's on Firestone tyres, of course. Scott Pruitt was in fact the original driver that did something like 12,000 miles testing when Firestone decided to come back into the IndyCar series. So Scott Pruitt knows the tyre well. But look at this, my word, David, we've suddenly got a battle for the lead going on here. Yeah, he's caught up very quickly. I'm quite surprised at that. So I don't know if Zanardi's got a problem or his tyres have gone off. It looks very, very interesting here. Yeah, it's early for the tyres to go off, isn't it? But Paul Tracy has caught right up to the back of Alex Zanardi's car and is really putting the pressure on now. So Zanardi, we saw it in the early stages at Homestead. He got away initially, but then as the tyre wear started to feature, then he started to drop back a little bit, and the Goodyear tyred cars were going better. It's ironic, it's almost the reverse of what we've seen in Formula One in the last Grand Prix. Yes, that's right. The Goodyear tyre actually has been dropping off performance. The Bridgestone tyre, which is Firestone under a different name, has had the consistent performance. It's remarkable. That's right. Looking at Panis's result, he was very happy with his tyres. He was very fast at the end of that race. You know, Zanardi could have made a small mistake which allowed him to catch up, because the gap sort of changed a bit again. Yeah, but Tracy seems to have slowed down. Tracy has slowed right down there. It looks as though there's some sort of problem. Maybe an accident here. Well, let's see what's going on. This is somewhere else. It looks like Gualter Sales coming up to try and pass Brian Herter. He certainly is losing it. He's going off. And did they make contact? Let's have a look. He goes across the chicane. Herter tries to keep out of the way. And I think he just about managed it. Yeah, he did. You know, Herter did a good job just to avoid him, really. Obviously, he's had to avoid him
going on the grass, but that's caused a yellow, and obviously it's going to bunch everyone up.
Yeah, maybe that's what Tracy's seen. That could well be the reason that he backed off. The yellow flags, I didn't actually spot the yellow flag come out myself, but it looks as though that could well be the reason that Tracy has slowed down a little bit, dropped back behind Zanardi, and you can see the yellows, everybody has settled down and bunches back up again as they try and clear Gualtasales' car out of the way. That shouldn't take too long. It doesn't look as though he's actually done any damage really, except to maybe the bottom of the car.
Yes, obviously when he went through there he went over the curb, but these cars are pretty strong. I don't think it would have caused that much damage. He didn't look like he hit the wall. He's obviously stalled the engine. He needs to get restarted.
Down the inside, it was really what you were talking about earlier, about when you get down on the inside you just got that much less grip.
Yeah, just not a lot of grip down there. It's very dusty, and you can see there he's locked up at the rears. He's tried to avoid not only the car next to him but the wall, and he's even with the spin, he's done a good job with the spin.
That's right, he sort of kept an awareness of where he is and managed to limit the amount of damage done. So Gualtasales, the Brazilian from Rio de Janeiro, in his first season of this championship, drove in the Indy Lights Championship last year, the sort of level just below. Had 3 consecutive wins, in fact, to take 3rd place in the championship. So very good performance from Gualtasales, guy who formerly raced in the British Formula 3 Championship, won the Silverstone support race, the Grand Prix support race in the British Formula 3 Championship a couple of years ago, and now into this championship. As we mentioned earlier, it's such a strong series, this, not only for Brazilians but in Brazil, very, very popular, and of course they've now got the race in Rio coming up a little bit later on in the series. So positions, Zanardi leads with 58 laps to go. We're under the first yellow flag period of the race, following the red flag that we had earlier on in the accident between Gilles de Ferran and Christian Fittipaldi. Just looking at that, David, yes, you point out that Michael Andretti's now moved up to 9th position, so that's good news. He's made up a position, and I wonder if we're going to see a bit more of a charge from him. He's got past Bobby Rahal. He's now up behind Mark Blundell, so that could be an interesting little confrontation.
Michael's obviously very good at getting up through the field. He's moved up a place, and because remember Bobby Rahal, he's running on hard tyres, so you know, it'd be interesting to see how he gets on towards the end of his run before he has to come in the pits.
Yes, that's right. See at the end of the stint now. What I want to see as well is on this restart, looks as though we've still got at least one more lap to go, and Paul Tracy, who was putting so much pressure on Alex Zanardi just before the yellow flag came out, was just locking the brakes in his attempts just to sort of worry Zanardi. Zanardi was keeping it cool and not making any mistakes, but he must now be very aware that the Penske is very, very strong, and he's going to have to defend fairly hard to try and keep that lead position. We saw a view of Alonso Jr. just there, by the way, still quite a long way down the field. He hasn't made a great deal of progress in the other Penske, but just beginning to make a little bit of progress up past 1 or 2 cars. There's Gualtasales coming round back to join the rest of them, so that's good news. He will be back into the race, starting at the back of the group. And the yellow flag's still out at the moment, but I should imagine that we'll be getting this race underway again fairly quickly. That's one of the Toyota-powered cars. It looks like Juan Fangio into the pits and back out again. Difficult to see what the problem was there, but he rejoins the circuit, and in fact Patrick Carpentier's been in as well by those things, in the Alimax car, the Bettenhausen car of Patrick Carpentier, the French-Canadian, and he also is further down than he would have liked. Goochman goes through, Pruitt, Parker Johnson, there's Mark Blundell, Michael Andretti, Bobby Rahal, Gilles de Ferran, then Dario Franchitti. Dario keeping his nose clean so far. It is a tricky track on which to overtake. We haven't seen many moves yet, apart from that one of Andretti on Rahal, which we didn't actually see him get past, but he's made that one move. But it is not an easy track. The chicanes often break up this sort of racing, don't they? It's very hard to keep everybody together when you're going through the chicanes. Well, we just saw an accident there and how difficult it is to pass people. And because of that, you could see the Eagle came in, the Dan Gurney's team came in. Obviously that was a tactical move because they came in, they filled it up. They're obviously trying to gain time from the yellows and see what happens during the race, because they could end up gaining because of that move. Yes, that's right. It's a little bit of a gamble. We're very early on in the race, but of course it does depend on what other yellow flags we get throughout the course of the day. And with those sort of incidents really quite likely to happen again during the course of the afternoon, then we're likely to get some yellow flags at different times. That could put them up a position or two. It's worth the gamble, really, isn't it? If you're quite a long way down, what do you...
Yeah, very much so, yeah. If you're that far back, like they are, then you've got to look at every possible way of gaining time, and that was one of their decisions, and, you know, it could end up being a good move for them.
One of the differences between the Championship and Formula One Championship is in the scoring, and you actually score points right down to 12th place in this series. So, you know, you gain that one or two places that maybe just gets you up into the top 12. It can make a big difference at the end of the season in terms of where you finish and in terms of the money you earn as well. Coming to the end of this first caution period as Alex Zanardi gets ready to restart round 2 of the PPG Kart World Series from Surfers Paradise. The Italian who's led from pole position so far, but has had more and more pressure on him by Paul Tracy. Paul Tracy just moving over to get into the right place to get this race underway, and Greg Moore gets left behind again a little bit. Zanardi judges it pretty well, but Tracy wants to have a little look down the inside. I think, yes, he's going to be sensible about it, doesn't try and challenge there. Now that's perhaps a slightly more mature Paul Tracy that we're seeing driving nowadays. A couple of years ago, I could imagine that Tracy, even if he was just half there, he would have gone for the move. It might have come off, but it quite possibly would have ended in tears. Tracy just seems to be a little more sensible now.
Yeah, I think he's thinking about it perhaps a little bit more. And he looked like he had the run on Zanardi, but obviously, you know, very slippery there. Whereas looks like Andretti had a little bit of a slip there. He looks like he's dropped a place as well.
Has he gone back on the restart? Let's just check that as we go through the order. We won't really see on the leaderboard until they come around to complete this lap. So just have to try and spot the black car in the background. Zanardi, Tracy, Greg Moore, then Vassar, Gugelmin, Pruitt. Oh, we've got more problems. Michel Jourdain and Richie Hearn. Jourdain in the green and white car, number 19 there, and Richie Hearn in the white and red car. They've obviously had it coming together. Now, that was the slide of Michael Andretti. Now, I don't know whether Gilles de Ferran managed to get past there. Bobby Rahal was behind him. And there in the background, yeah, there you see, there was the accident between Hearn and Jourdain.
Obviously, he's gone on the inside. And again, you know, not a lot of grip there, and caused the back to come round, and you know, this will probably bring out another yellow.
Well, we've got yellow flags in that corner, but it sounds as though we've got yellow flags all around the circuit again, a full course yellow. They can throw a yellow flag just on the corner if they think they can get the car out of the way quickly enough, but Zanardi has slowed down. We've gone to a full course yellow. That car pretty much blocking the access to the chicane anyway, so it would have made life pretty dangerous, I think, if they'd kept them under green flag conditions. So once again, the guys will slow it down, and once again there's a bit of a clear-up operation to be done before the race restarts. Obviously a feature very much of this type of racing. We've got somebody now deciding to come into the pits. Now this could be a tactical move or two from one or two of the other teams, and that's Gilles de Ferran now coming in. He's in his backup car. Let's just see whether this is a routine stop that they've decided to take their first pit stop early. Looks like it. They're going for a tyre change and refuel, and Alonso Jr. into the pits as well in the number 2 Penske. Now that's interesting. Roger Penske, one of the sharpest when it comes to calling pit stops, and they've decided, and in fact it looks as though they may have got him out ahead of de Ferran. Yes, they have. Good pitch work there from the Penske crew.
That is Penske, isn't it? You know, they're so sharp in the pit stop, and you know, Al's got in front, and you know, that is the one place which you can pass people is obviously in the pits, and the Penske are very good at that.
Yes, and that was just a perfect example of how to do it. Both of them coming in, taking the gamble, looking towards more yellow flags later in the race. So one stop apiece from those two guys, and Richie Hearn into the pits as well, but that may be, I wonder if there was any damage done. Looks as though they're going to change the nose cone on that car. So obviously a little bit of damage done in that incident with Michel Jourdain. Richie Hearn, one of the youngsters into the championship this year. New team as well, Della Penna Motorsports, and he did a few races last year with the team. As Alonso Jr. now, he's come back in again. What was the problem there?
Well, it looks like the pit stop was a bit too quick, because it looked like the left rear tyre was coming off.
Yeah, absolutely. He looks as though he's got a problem with that though.
It's come off now, yeah.
So, as you well, it was too quick. They obviously got a bit too carried away there. And poor old Alonso Jr., oh, this is ridiculous, isn't it? What bad luck. And the Penske, I mean, you just do not expect this from the Penske crew. to make a mistake on a pit stop like that. Wheel nuts disappeared, wheels come off, and R02 Jr. retired early in the race at Homestead. He had an engine problem there, and he's out of this second round of the championship at Surfers Paradise. What a disappointing start to the season this is.
Oh, terrible. You know, obviously that's, you know, Penske are good, but obviously it shows that mistakes can happen. It'd be interesting to find out what really happened there, but obviously he's come out of the pits and the wheel nut was not done properly.
And it's unfortunate that it's a rear wheel as well. If it had been a front wheel, it wouldn't be quite so bad, would it?
No, obviously he's having trouble getting back to the pits, so he obviously wants... he's going to have to be towed back, but if he gets back to the pits, he should be able to rejoin the race. Or he's getting out.
Can they tow it back without doing too much damage to the car? I guess it will just scrape along the skid plates. There you can see how the wheel was just wobbling away, ready to detach itself from the left rear suspension. And I don't think there's an awful lot that Al could do about that. As soon as he went a little bit further down the road, that wheel was just about to part company, and as he came around the left-hander, that's exactly what it did.
Normally these cars have a retainer on the end of the axle, so the wheel nut, when it does come loose, it can't come off, but obviously it has come off on this occasion. Yeah, that's slightly strange, as you say. Normally there's a locking system, so it sort of wobbles, but it actually can't detach itself. But, yes.
Obviously, as you say, there was something's gone wrong with the system there. And R02 Jr., oh dear, unbelievable bad luck for Junior. And what a start to the 1997 season it is for him. Out of the first race, out of the second race, he's got to look forward towards Long Beach. He's a 5-time winner of the Long Beach race, and it will be opportune, really, for his luck to change in Long Beach. We're going to take a break. We'll be back at Surfers Paradise in a moment. To Surfers Paradise, and as the second caution period comes towards an end, Alex Zanardi is still our race leader, but most of his driving's been done at very much quarter pace so far this afternoon. It's been a strange afternoon's racing so far, rather disjointed with the first start, the problems that we had there, the accident between Christian Fittipaldi and Gilles de Ferran. The race stopped, then the race restarted, Zanardi leading the early part, Paul Tracy catching him, putting him under pressure, then the first of the 2 yellows that we're going through at the moment due to incidents. We saw the spin from Gualter Sales.
Welcome guys to Surfers Paradise, Australia.
Thanks, girls. Let's have a little look around the place. Well, a very brief look around the place, David. A place you know pretty well. I should think that sometimes it's a bit of a shame that you're living in England rather than living down there with your brothers Jeffrey and Gary.
Well, it's always nice to go down there and visit, and I was watching someone out on a Sea-Doo wave blasting out in the ocean, and when I was last there I was doing that, and it was great fun, and also at the same time I was doing that, there was a whole school of dolphins just swimming around me, so it was that was just a unique opportunity to see nature, you know.
Yeah, beautiful part of the world, and yeah, something like that don't happen too often. And Surfers Paradise, it is a Surfers Paradise. It's where a lot of surfers come from all parts of Australia, in fact all parts of the world, to enjoy the waves there, don't they?
Yes, they do. It's quite good surf all the way up and down the coast of Australia. So, you know, there's always a lot of world champion surfing guys come out of Australia, really. You know, they're very good.
So the safety car still mopping up bits and pieces, still clearing away cars from the various accidents that we've had. The last accident involving Michel Jourdain, the young Mexican who's come into the series this year. In fact, he came in last year, did 1 race last year, became the youngest driver ever to compete in the championship last year. That comes from racing in Mexico, slightly different form of sport here, but he's doing a respectable job so far, and he crashed with Richie Hearn. And Richie Hearn, a winner already in an IndyCar, but in the IRL championship rather than in the kart series last year, and now putting in a full program this year. Cars wending their way round. Dario Franchitti, we just had a quick glimpse of the young Scot doing a good job, still settling into this whole form of racing, got all the circuits to learn, he's got the techniques to learn, and he did a great job yesterday in qualifying. He was in the first group of qualifying, Dario Franchitti. He was fastest in the group, but there's no doubt that the second group was faster. There was more rubber down, the temperature dropped a little bit as well. so he really couldn't do much up against the guys in the second group. So although he qualified 13th, it was actually a very strong performance from Franchitti yesterday. It's restart time here. Alex Zanardi blasts it out of the last corner this time, and there's been he's done it slightly different every single time, but watch the battle for third position going on between Greg Moore and Jimmy Vasser, side by side. Ooh, let's hope this doesn't end in tears on the run down towards the first chicane. Greg Moore on the inside, Vasser just has to give way, and Greg Moore holds on to third place. Vasser in fourth position as they come around on this restarted lap. In fifth place is Guterman, sixth place is Scott Pruitt, and that was a battle that has been going on for quite a while. Behind them, it's Parker Johnston, and then Mark Blundell and Michael Andretti not far behind that as well, as Guterman has a little look down the inside of Jimmy Vasser, but doesn't quite go through. Zanardi definitely varying his tactics on the restarts though, David.
Yes, he's changing it every time. That time, as soon as he came out of the last corner, he was gone. But it looked like Vasser or Moore just didn't anticipate that and started to back off and nearly lost a place.
Yes, but as it's turned out, they've all settled down into the same positions, more or less, as they were before. Pruitt comes around, Johnson, there's Blundell. Mark now under pressure from Michael Andretti. And this should be an interesting little tussle. Mark Blundell into his second season of this type of racing, but remember, he didn't compete here at Surfers Paradise last year. The schedule was slightly different last year, and Mark came to Australia after having broken his foot at the Rio Indy race. Came along to have a look at the circuit, see what was going on, so he had a bit of an idea about the place when he came this year, but still having to learn the circuit and now get into it in race conditions as well. He's got Michael Andretti bearing down on him, and that could be quite an interesting little rivalry going on there.
Yeah, don't forget also that the two ex-McLaren Formula 1 drivers as well, so you know, they're out there to prove something.
Yes, that's right. There's a little bit of extra edge perhaps between the two of them. So Zanardi crosses the line, and he's pulled away from Paul Tracy. We saw Tracy catch Zanardi up as we went through that first little stint up to the first yellow flag. Zanardi seems to have the initial pace away from the restarts again. The question is, over the next few laps, we've then got to watch this gap between Zanardi and Tracy and see whether Tracy can just begin to close it up again a little bit. Greg Moore holding on to third position. So we've got two Canadians in the top three, an Italian leading, two Canadians, and then the first of the American drivers, Jimmy Vasser, in fourth place. A little bit of brake locking up going on. Zanardi's obviously trying pretty hard. And Tracy maybe just looking after the car a little bit, looking after the tyres before he starts to really charge and get up behind Zanardi once again. Greg Moore in third place, and remember, Greg is in the 1997 Reynard for the first time this race. He was due to drive a Lola this year. He's another one of the drivers that have switched from Lola to Reynard. He switched quite late, and so he had to run his 1996 Reynard at the first race at Homestead, but they've got the new car now. They just got it all built in time. They did a little bit of shakedown testing before it was all taken apart again, put in the crates and brought over to Australia. But Greg seems to be adapting to that 97 car extremely quickly. Doesn't seem to find it very difficult.
Yes, obviously, you know, changing a car like that just before the season just puts you on a back step. And the fact that he's running third here in the new car means that the team have got their act together very quickly, and Greg's just settled in there, and he's doing a very good job.
I remember talking to him about that and saying, he was saying that, of course, the trouble with starting that much later and getting the car late is that everybody else has been testing with the Reynard 97 car already. They would have got the setup for road courses and whatever. So it adds to what they've done here by running in third place and running so competitively in qualifying to just get the car and put it on the track and go this quickly. It says a lot about the car as well.
Yes, it does, and looks like we've got a bit of a move here.
Scott Pruitt trying to get past Guterman, yeah. But we didn't quite come
Just didn't make that one, but obviously Pruitt looks like he's actually quite fast, but finding it difficult to pass people. I think if he got in front, he'd then pull away and catch the people in front.
It looks as though Guterman's slowing that little group down now, doesn't it? Because all four cars are all getting pretty close together. Just behind, we've got Parker Johnston, then Mark Blundell, and in fact Michael Andretti just behind him as well. So this is quite a gaggle. And Scott Pruitt looking eagerly to get past Guterman, but that first move hasn't worked. He's now perhaps got to rethink it a little bit. He's given the game away a little bit as to that's where he might try. And he may now have to sort somewhere else out. Pretty quick through there, closed up a little bit more. Then on acceleration again, it evens itself out.
Scott was very fast in the warm-up, so he was over a second faster than anyone else. So he's either running light fuel load or he has got a really good race setup. And looking here, he's actually on Guzman's tail a lot, so I think he's actually quite fast in this race.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. You've actually raced with Scott Pruitt, I think, David, in the sports cars in the past.
That's right, we drove together at Daytona and we finished second together, driving for the Jaguar team, and he's a very, very strong driver. I was very surprised when I went over there how strong he was, and I'm not surprised he's doing this well.
He's had an interesting career, sort of up and down career a little bit. He actually almost mortgaged everything he owned to first get into the championship some years ago now when he made his debut at Long Beach. And it worked. He set a few tongues wagging with his performance and his ability. And from there, he's had a bit of an up and down time, really. He has suffered a very big testing accident some years ago. That was, in fact, the beginning of 1990, when he broke his back, his ankles, his knees as well. It was one of those really horrible accidents. Oh, and we've got problems for one of the Eagle cars. That's P.J. Jones's car, number 98. And it looks as though they suffered some sort of engine fire. Jones is out of the car already. Let's have a look what happened here. Well, you can see some smoke beginning to come from the back of the car. Jones thinking very quickly, getting it over the curb, down the little escape road there, saying, I've had enough of this. I do not wish to be in this car any longer if it's going to catch fire. So he brought it to a fairly swift halt, and that shouldn't cause any yellow flags because he's got it well out of the way. So Jones thinking quickly there and not causing another yellow flag period. But just coming back to Scott Pruitt, he's 36. Oh, we got a yellow flag there. Did we see what happened?
Well, that could have been where the oil is or where the accident is. I'm not sure. We didn't see any car on the track, so maybe that was the P.J. Jones car.
Right, yes, it could have been just that. They've just put a local yellow out for where the car's pulled off on the side of the track. Just coming back to Scott Pruitt, as I say, 36 years old now, and very much a part of Firestone's return to the championship, and he's definitely closing up to Guzman again here as they come down the start-finish straight. But is he going to be close enough? No, I think is the answer. He just can't quite get close enough to get alongside and under braking get past Maurizio Guzman. But this is proving to be the best battle of the race so far. And Scott Pruitt there again, right tucked under the rear wing now of Maurizio Guzman. This is another opportunity, but Guzman knows where to cover the ground. He just takes the middle ground, and Pruitt is denied the opportunity.
He's making his car very wide, isn't he? But Scott Pruitt's very fast on the straights, and you know, to pass here you need to be fast on the straights, so it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few laps.
Pruitt actually led the championship last year. It was in fact around this time after the first few races. He had a good series of results in the early part of the year. Dropped down to finish 10th overall in the championship in the end, but a lot of bad luck was the cause of that. But let's just get back to this battle for the leaders, because just as we saw earlier on, David, Zanardi, the initial advantage, gets some laps under the belt, gets some tyre temperature up, a little bit of wear on the tyres, and suddenly Tracy is back in the game again, isn't he?
Yeah, it seems like the Firestone on Zanardi's car comes in a lot quicker. You know, the heat comes in quicker, so he's able to pull away. And then the Goodyear comes into its own, and here we are, we're coming up to lap traffic, right where the leaders are very close.
Yeah, and you can see Zanardi's car beginning to slide around, those tyres beginning to go off. But as he mentioned in yesterday's pole position press conference, getting up behind him is going to be one thing, but he knows that getting past on this track is difficult, and we've seen that already from the battle that's going on between Guzman and Pruitt. Zanardi is in control in this situation. If he can just be sensible and just use the road correctly, it's going to be very difficult for Tracy to get past, and it may well just come down to a battle in the pit lane between them.
Yes, it could be the battle in the pit lane. Obviously, Ganassi is just as good as Penske at the moment, so they're just as slick in the pits.
He's got wide. Tracy,
he's got
the chance to go through. Paul Tracy goes into the lead, and that was purely a mistake from Zanardi. And what was I saying, Alex? You just had to control it, but you made the mistake. He just lost it a little bit coming into the left-hander.
Yeah, obviously he's under immense pressure from Paul. Obviously, he obviously realises that he just hasn't got the pace to keep Tracy too far behind, and Tracy's just put him under pressure, and he's made the mistake of going too deep into the corner, locked up, went very wide. You can see here he's just, the back's come out, it's all twitching. Paul's just watching this at the same time, and he can see that he's going to get this opportunity, and this is only a small opportunity he's going to get it. He's just gone wide. He can't get the power down. Paul gets the power down. He's probably gone down another gear to help him get out of that corner, and he's got him.
A view from on board as Zanardi got it all twitched up under braking, and Tracy, good driving from Tracy. Again, we're not seeing the impetuosity that we've seen from Tracy. He, as you say, David, he just sort of waited. He thought, I'm just going to see what's going to happen here. I'm just going to give him a little bit of space, and then when he saw what was happening, slipped through on the inside. Tracy is the new race leader. And Tracy is pulling away at quite a rate. Just look at the lead that he's already established over Alex Zanardi. Very, very quickly, Zanardi dropping back, and well, I wonder if he's going to start dropping back into the clutches of Greg Moore. Really, it's a repeat of what we saw in the opening race of the championship. Homestead, Zanardi on pole, led the early laps. Again, it started to drop away a little bit, and it seems that perhaps they've got the car working the tyre almost too hard.
Yes, it does. It looks like the tyre's getting a real beating out there on this car. You know, he's very fast at the beginning, but he's struggling. You can see the gap now between these two cars is so big now that obviously, you know, Tracy was right up behind him putting the pressure, because he was, you know, looks like he's over a second a lap quicker.
Yeah, he's just disappearing up the road. Looking back, we've got Greg Moore in the blue and white car third. Jimmy Vasser in the target car in fourth. And now look at this, Gutman really having to defend hard to prevent Scott Pruitt coming through. Gutman's doing it well. He's doing it sensibly. Still got the stationary yellow down there. That's probably still for the car pulled off at the side of the track. Pruitt now, he's just edging that bit closer and closer, tucked under the wing. He's losing downforce, but still keeping in very, very close. Just dropped back a little bit there. Oh, we've had somebody off. Now, I wonder if that was the cause of the yellow. Somebody's hit one of those polystyrene lumps that marks the corner. I think that's what it is. Anyway, let's take a look, see if we can find out what happened here. Or is it, it might be some of the tyres, in fact.
Looks like Carpentier's hit it, and then put it into the middle, and then obviously someone else has gone over the top of it.
That's Salads again. I think
lost his tyres on the track and went into the wall.
Oh dear, I think we've got a full course yellow, and now we're seeing the pit stops, of course. First round of pit stops, vital time as Paul Tracy is called in by the Penske team. They spotted that yellow very quickly, and they've called in the race leader. Are we going to see Zanardi and the others coming in at the same time? The fuel goes aboard, the methanol into the tank, and out comes Paul. Oh, and he's hit Johnston! He's hit Parker Johnston coming out of the pits. Oh, and I wonder if there's any damage done to the car. It can always happen. It's so easy for it to happen, but somebody called it wrong there. I don't know whether Penske crew didn't call it right. They maybe didn't see Johnston coming in, or there again, you can see how close they get as they come out. Really, it was just one of those things that happens, and contact made. And is Tracy's car all right? That's the question.
Well, he did hit him, but the car is quite strong. It doesn't look like there's too much damage there, does it?
It doesn't look like it, but it's a bit hard to tell from here, isn't it? We're looking down at
Dario's got it wrong.
Yeah, Franchitti's come in too quick by the looks of things, and Dario, got to get it stopped in the right place. That's lost him a lot of time now. That's a rookie error, and it's the sort of mistake that it's easy to make, coming in fast, trying to stop as quickly as possible, but it looks as though he's overdone it a little bit there. The car has slewed sideways, and the tyres are all in the wrong place. They've got to move the wheels around, and this is really going to drop him right down to the back of the queue, and I think that really puts Dario's chances of scoring a point here in jeopardy, to say the least. Out of the pits he comes, but a long way down now.
We could probably see Gilles de Ferran. Remember, he came in early for a fuel stop. He could actually stay. I didn't see him come in the pit, so maybe he's got right back up in the leading group again.
Actually, that's him there, just coming back. Yeah. So he may well have come into the pits as well. Maybe it was that we had quite a long green flag section there. So
yeah, obviously it wasn't enough, so he's had to come in to fill up like everyone else has.
That's right. So not able to take advantage of that. Now let's have a look at what happened again as he came out. Tracy comes out.
He's got the wave. You can see he's got the wave to come out.
Yeah. And Johnston's coming in and just shuts. Well, I mean, that was just one of those things, wasn't it? Johnston was just in that wrong place. Could you see any damage?
I don't know. It's very difficult because the way the wishbones are set, but it did look like there was a little bit of kink in the wishbone, but that could be just an illusion. I'm not 100% sure.
So interesting stuff. Is Paul Tracy all right? Has he survived that incident with Parker Johnston? these cars are strong. We certainly saw that a few years ago. Remember when Andretti was leading this race? It rained again, and he hit the tyres down at the first chicane with an almighty thump and still went on to win the race. Remarkable that was. And remember Andretti saying that this new Reynard was built like a tank in the way that it withstood impact. Certainly didn't go like one, winning its first race. But Tracy now has to test out to see whether the Penske is made of such stern stuff after that fairly smart contact with that car there, the green and white car of Parker Johnston, as we've still got a clear-up operation going on that caused this yellow flag in the first place when Guelta Salas hit the tyres coming through the chicane. So with another yellow flag period, I think this is going to be one of the longer races here at Surfers Paradise in its 7 years of running. We're going to take a break, be back again very soon. After 21 of 65 laps, Paul Tracy leads. They're under yellow flag again. Alex Zanardi second. Brian Herter has not stopped on this second pit stall, the yellow, and so he's up to third now. Greg Moore's fourth, and then Jimmy Vasser in fifth place. But all sorts of incident and action. We saw Paul Tracy hitting Parker Johnston as he came out of the pits. We think that he's bent that front wishbone, yes. And David, what do you reckon?
Well, I think he has. It might be the front part of the wishbone, but there certainly looks like a slight kink in the... Yeah, as you can see there, you can just see it slightly bowed a little bit, so that obviously may cause some handling problems, although it may not. Sometimes these things can and sometimes they can't.
Have you been in that position yourself before?
I have. It does slow you a little bit. Obviously the concern is if it breaks, but again, these cars are very strong.
Now, that's one of the Toyota Power cars that's come to a stop. That looks like the car of Hiro Matsushita, and unfortunately, he's come to a stop by the side of the track. Now, I wonder what's happened there. It looks as though they may just get a tow back into the pit lane and be able to restart. Trying to explain things to the kart team. Let me just tell you that we've, as you saw from the caption, completed 21 of 65 laps. But they have confirmed that the race will be checkered flag at 2 hours, exactly 2 hours after the restart, which was... means that basically the race has got an hour and a quarter to go maximum, even if they don't get to the end of the 65 laps. So 2 hours absolutely maximum on this race. We also saw some more action, didn't we, David, on just during that commercial break, some more action that happened coming into the pits.
Yeah, Gilles de Ferran's not having a very good race here because he was coming into the pits. Michael was following him, obviously didn't anticipate that the sort of speed that Gilles was going and just hit him straight up the back just before they were entering the pit lane. So obviously it hasn't caused too much damage, but Gilles had a few knocks this race, hasn't he?
That's right, and I wonder if Michael's car's at all damaged from that as well. He may have just tweaked the front wing or something, I suppose, coming in and hitting the back of de Ferran's car. And I couldn't quite work that out because normally they come in as quickly as possible. I mean, even under yellow, it's so important to be quick in and out of the pits, otherwise you lose your position in the line.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what happened with Gilles slowing down. Obviously, there's a speed limit, so maybe he was just slowing down for that speed limit. But Michael wasn't going to slow down, and he just came into the pits very fast and hit him straight up the back.
Yeah, well, Michael's back in the queue there, as you can see. More or less where he was before, to be honest. The only difference in the queue at the moment is the car that's third on the road, the white and black car, the Shell-sponsored car of Brian Herter. He has not stopped on this round of pit stop, so he is now in third place. He's got Greg Moore behind him.
Very close behind him.
Yes, he is, even on while they're weaving around. Vasser then next up on the road, and he's followed by Scott Pruitt. And he's ahead now of Gugelmin. Now that's interesting because with the pit stops it looks as though Pruitt has actually managed to get ahead of Gugelmin. Pruitt's the man on the move. He has been during the race throughout. He's looked the fastest really so far, apart from perhaps the top two, Zanardi and Tracy. Excuse me. So let's see whether Scott Pruitt is now able to close up to Jimmy Vasser and put him under the sort of pressure we saw him putting on Maurizio Gugelmin. There he is.
Yeah, he was obviously faster than Gugelmin. And obviously they've done a very good job in the pit stops to get in front. He'll be pleased with that because he knows that he's got a fast car, and he'll be thinking of ways of getting past Jimmy Vasser now.
Yeah, that's not going to be terribly straightforward. In fact, those two battled for the win here last year, and Scott Pruitt and Jimmy Vasser were fairly evenly matched. Scott led it for a part of the race, but basically lost out to Jimmy Vasser in terms of fuel mileage. The Ford Cosworth engine last year was not as fuel efficient in terms of producing the power as well as the Honda. This year it does seem a lot better, that XD engine, much more fuel efficient, producing the power, it's doing the business, and so it could be that Pruitt can keep up this sort of performance throughout the race this time. So, looks as though we're about to get this race underway again. Paul Tracy leads them round, Zanardi second. Let's see who can get away well on this restart. Tracy with the advantage. Jimmy Vasser you're already on board with. Green flag flies, and this race gets underway once more. It's been fairly broken up so far. Let's see if we can now get into a fair rhythm if everybody gets through this first lap cleanly, now that the tyre temperatures have dropped again. The brains have got to get back into gear at running at full pace. And we get some good onboard footage once again from Jimmy Vasser. Tracy leads in the Penske. Zanardi is second. Brian Herter in third place, but he is going to have to stop at some point. Oh, a bit of a lock-up from Tracy. But he kept it tidy, didn't actually lose too much ground.
No, he's lucky because he nearly did the same thing as what Zanardi did when he got past him.
Yes, and Zanardi not quite so close, in fact, to be able to take advantage of that. But Tracy kept it tidier than Zanardi had done earlier on. So Tracy leads, Zanardi in second place. Herter. Now I just want to see the relative performance of Brian Herter. Will be interesting at this point. Is he able to stay with the pace of these leaders, or is he going to drop down the order? Greg Moore will be keen to get past him as quickly as possible to not allow these two to escape too quickly.
Obviously there's a difference in the fuel load as well, because obviously he'll be lighter, so he should be able to stay there with them.
Yes, although the tyre wear presumably fairly high as well at this stage, but it depends on what tyres. Rahaal's, it may well be that he's gone on the harder tyre as well as team boss Bobby, and so that may well be to his advantage. On board now with Alex Zanardi chasing after Paul Tracy. Oh, Tracy sliding around a bit there. You can really see the car working, but the question is it because of that bent front wishbone? What's going on? How is that car handling?
I mean, he's taking a very wide line there, isn't he? It could be the wishbone, or it could be, again, you know, the Goodyear tyre trying to get up to temperature, and he's obviously trying to get some heat into it.
Zanardi will be being kept informed, I'm sure, of the damage that was done to Tracy's car. Chip Ganassi team will have told him, look, watch it, Tracy could be in trouble. And it could become more apparent as we go over the next few laps, because if the tracking's out at the front, if the front wheels aren't pointing exactly straight ahead as they should be, there's a little bit more toe in or toe out on the front, then that's going to increase the tyre wear, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly will, because you know, these things are so critical. And the way he's locking up brakes, I don't know if that may have upset corner weights as well. I'm not 100% sure, but he's certainly been locking up every time he's been entering a corner.
Very true, yes. The corner weight's the way the car sits on the chassis, basically, and often by bending a wishbone, that knocks the chassis sort of askew. The way it sits on its wheels, it doesn't sit quite as straight as it should do, and that makes the car very difficult to drive, unstable under braking, pulling one way or the other under braking and in through the corner as well. Having said that, Tracy seems to be doing a fine job at the moment. He's still there in front, and Zanardi is still chasing. The two of them pulling away a little bit from third place man as well. It's Paul Tracy leading, Zanardi in second position. And they're definitely escaping from Greg Moore in third, and Brian Herter it is rather in third, Greg Moore in fourth place. And it's giving these two an opportunity. Again, though, the lock-up from Paul Tracy, the inside front.
Yes, I think also when he comes in for the next pit stop, it doesn't look like it's actually kinked. It's actually just bent a little bit. So what in the pit stop, they'll be trying to straighten that up as he comes in the pits.
Yes, a bit of old-fashioned engineering, perhaps, you know.
Yeah, they'll get the hammer out.
Yeah, get hold of it, give it a good yank, and try and get it all straightened up again. Just about what it needs, but Tracy, whatever it is, however much damage has been done, he's still leading this race, and he's still keeping Zanardi behind him without, apparently, too much effort so far.
No, he seems to be well in control here, really, considering he's had that damage.
Yes, that's right.
And Brian Herter obviously is holding everyone up, because there's quite a queue behind him.
Yeah, Greg Moore still trying to get past Brian Herter for third position, and Greg Moore be hoping that Brian Herter makes his pit stop soon and gets out of the way, because they're definitely dropping away from the leaders. Vasser still behind Greg Moore. Then it's Scott Pruitt. Pruitt hasn't been able to find a way past Vasser as yet. Behind him, it's still Maurizio Gugelmin. And then Michael Andretti was it Andretti just behind Gugelmin? No, it's a little bit difficult to tell there. The computer having gone down on our leaderboard, I'm afraid, so we can't tell you the exact positions further down the order, the gaps between the drivers, but Pruitt there, then Gugelmin, and then Andretti still a part of this group on board with Jimmy Vasser. chasing after Greg Moore. And the two of them being held up by Brian Herter so far. 5th position for Vassar, still up there, still likely to score consistently. And as we mentioned earlier, the early part of last season was so important for Jimmy Vassar in terms of winning a title. Winning 4 out of the first 6 races was really how he set the mark in terms of the championship. And after that, everybody else was trying to play catch-up to him. It's so important in these early races to really establish yourself if you can. Last year, he had the equipment advantage. This year, there is more parity between the cars, and therefore it's going to be much harder for anybody to really set that sort of advantage.
Yes, it looks like there's quite a difference between this year and last year as far as performance for every car, and which is great for the racing, isn't it? I mean, you can see here they're bunched up. We've got a lot of different chassis and engines and tyres, so this is what makes IndyCar a great racing formula.
Yeah, we've got a Penske chassis leading, a Mercedes engine, Goodyear tyres. We've got a Reynard in second with Honda and Firestone. At the moment, we've got a Reynard with a Ford engine and Goodyear tyres in 3rd place, but that's slightly misleading because he hasn't made his stop. Greg Moore, he's on Firestone tyres, another Mercedes-powered car, so Mercedes seems to be going pretty strongly here. Over the last couple of weeks with the testing, etc., and the first race, Mercedes have been suffering some silly problems, sort of throttle problems and general oil leaks and bits and pieces. They seem to have had a few little problems like that. But there doesn't seem to be any question about the performance of the engine, built by Ilmore in Northamptonshire in the UK. It's obviously the engine this year is performing extremely well. It looks as though both Mercedes and Ford Cosworth, for that matter, have rather up to Honda. They were behind Honda last year. There was no doubt about that, particularly in the early races. But now there does seem to be a much more even performance between the 3 engine manufacturers.
Yes, it does. You know, Honda had a big advantage last year, and obviously now the Ford's probably made the biggest gain out of all the engines, which is great to see.
Yes, it's good on board with Michael Andretti. He's using his Ford to good effect at the moment, although he still can't find a way past. But the car running reliably, the winner of the opening race of the championship. But unless he finds a way of overtaking a little bit more quickly, as it were, finding that space, he's not going to add to his points tally very much. He's going to keep the championship fairly open. But is this a move down the inside? No.
He's having a look, isn't he? He's obviously making sure that he knows in front that he's right there behind him.
Maurizio Gugelmin it is, who's just ahead of Andretti. Mark Blundell behind Andretti now. That pretty much through to the pit stops that Andretti got past Blundell. So Andretti in 8th position, but he's still there and he's still working his way up and getting into a reasonable point scoring place. And at the moment it's looking good for Paul Tracy in terms of the championship. Finished 2nd at Homestead, leading this race. And that would obviously give him a fair lead at this point, but Vassar's still in there as well, another strong finisher at Homestead. The view back from Jimmy Vassar's car as this race continues at Surfers Paradise. He's got Scott Pruitt bearing down on him. Vassar is in 5th place at the moment. He's having a steady run, but not really showing amongst the 2 leaders, Paul Tracy and Alex Zanardi. He's been stuck in this little group for most of the afternoon so far, but it's very, very close. And look how they're all being bunched up behind Brian Herter.
Yeah, they are. They really want to get past him, don't they? And they're obviously a lot faster, but again, it just shows you how difficult it is to pass around here.
Well, Herter's doing the job, as he should, and keeping them behind him. Not as strong a season so far for Team Rahal as we would have expected, as Pruitt again closes up to Jimmy Vassar. Still, oh, and now they've gone past. Now, was that Herter they've gone past, or was that a back marker? Couldn't quite see. Hopefully we'll get an opportunity to see from the outside, as it looks as though it was Herter, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know. The car's coming down there very slowly. Obviously got a problem.
No, not having stopped. Andretti making a move on Gugelmin. Michael Andretti goes up into 7th position, and he forces his way down the inside. Now, that was good driving. Didn't even lock up to do it, but he was there, and he got down the inside. Maurizio Gugelmin couldn't really shut the door. It was too late by that point, and so Michael slips ahead and goes into 7th place now.
Yeah, that was a great move, wasn't it? Because all the cars were coming down and braking, and obviously sometimes when that happens you get slowed up a little bit. Andretti anticipated that, just went down on the inside and had a little bit more speed into the corner.
So that's another one off his list, working his way up from 12th place on the grid, remember. It's taking him quite a lot of time to do it this time. It's not as if he can just pick them up lap after lap. and he didn't have the sort of opening lap that he had in Homestead. That was a remarkable opening lap there, but he's now coming up behind Scott Pruitt as the chase continues. Brian Herter's still in that group, isn't he?
Well, he's obviously dropped right back. I don't know what the problem was, but here we are. That's quite a good outbraking maneuver. It's very slippery down there. He hasn't locked up, and he's just squeezed in there, hasn't he? That was good driving by Michael.
I think he rather caught Maurizio napping that time, because Gugelmin's been sort of just defending that inner line most of the time, and I think Gugelmin just sort of didn't really think about it that time. Probably thought Michael was too far back, wasn't going to have a go, and that's the time that Michael's at his most dangerous, just snatching the advantage. Such a good racer, and last year had a up and down season. At the beginning of the season he made a few mistakes, including one here at Surfers Paradise. He was running into people, and they gave him quite a hard time about that. He was actually put on probation when they got to Long Beach. But after that, everything seemed to come together for him. He scored 5 victories. He was in absolutely superb form last year. And now with this new Swift Indy car, the mood in the Newman Haas camp, buoyed by that initial win at Homestead. And now they really are on a roll. And Andretti driving with that sort of confidence again and looking to work his way further up into the leader pack here.
The thing about Michael Andretti is that he anticipates so well in racing conditions, and this is why he's won so many races. And we see on the oval at Homestead where he gained so many places, and a lot of that is just anticipation.
Trouble for Brian Herter, and it looks as though there's been a tangle or something, or maybe not.
He's not happy, is he?
I don't know if he's actually helping him out. Oh, Mark Blundell's involved. Mark Blundell's involved as well. Oh, no.
Obviously, he's caused the accident. He feels quite guilty. He's out there helping him.
It looks like Parker Johnson, isn't it? I'm just trying to check who that is. Difficult to see at the moment as he tries to get Brian Herter. This is what happened. Johnston and Blundell were side by side. They suddenly caught up to Brian Herter. Johnston lost it under brakes coming into the chicane, took out Brian Herter, and Mark Blundell was stuffed by it as well. There was nowhere he could go, and everybody went past on the inside, and Parker Johnston now feeling somewhat guilty, trying to help them out of trouble. But Parker, there you see, just locks it under braking. Now that is exactly what we were saying about how slippery it was. That's what Michael Andretti didn't do when he went past Gugelmin.
Yeah, he obviously timed that one right, and Parker timed it wrong, didn't he? But obviously Parker felt guilty because he was out there trying to help everyone. He's such a nice guy too, you know.
He's such a nice bloke, almost too nice, isn't he? He's sort of trying to get the other guys out there.
God damn, I just, you know, I stuffed that one up. I got to go and help these guys.
That's right. Well, Brian Herter, he was very much the victim there. He tried to stay out of the way. Herter's been trying to avoid people's accidents all afternoon, really, hasn't he? Because he was in that incident earlier when Gualter Sales went off, and he
slowed down dramatically from being third to dropping all the way back. You know, Parker's got back, which is good. Yeah.
Parker's back out, but Brian isn't. And I'm not sure whether Mark got going again. I think Blundell did get going. I think they managed to push him going again. So Johnson back on circuit. Pit stops again, and into the pits. The guy who stopped earlier on, Patrick Carpentier, has taken advantage of this yellow flag to come back into the pits for his second stop now. Bit of wheel speed coming out, but no major problems. We're under yellow flag conditions after the accident between Parker Johnston and Brian Herter, which tangled Mark Blundell up in it as well. And that's a shame for Blundell because he was putting in a reasonably strong race. You can see your top 6 there. Tracy leads, Zanardi second, Moore third, Vassar fourth, Pruitt in 5th, and Michael Andretti, who's worked his way up into 6th position. Then it's Gugelmin, Ribeiro, De Ferran, but Herter and Blundell and Johnston have all now dropped down the order as we're on lap 30 out of 65, but with about 55 minutes to go. Surfers Paradise, and the car of Brian Herter being picked up and taken away. Parker Johnston's been back into the pits. They put a new set of tyres on. He's got out of the car, got the seatbelt sorted out, got back in it, re-strapped in, and here he comes back onto the circuit once again. So, all drama in this race. We've had all sorts of ups and downs and bits and pieces. Let's just quickly run through what's happened through this race in case you've joined us a little bit later on. The race going on a bit longer than had been previously envisioned as well. It all started out okay with initial start, initial getaway, but on the opening lap at the first start there was a big accident between Gilles de Ferran and Christian Fittipaldi. When Gilles de Ferran hit the back of Fittipaldi's car, Fittipaldi hit the wall very hard indeed. He's broken his leg as a result of that and is being tended to by the medical staff. and the local hospitals, but otherwise okay, and it was a very, very heavy impact. After that, we had a fairly long delay. The start, again, the restart took place, the battle between Alex Zanardi and Paul Tracy. Zanardi led the opening laps. Tracy then caught him up, looked as though he was about to challenge, but then we had a series of yellow flags with various incidents, people going off the chicanes, getting it wrong, locking up, and causing a couple of yellow flags. Then the restarts again, Zanardi coming under increasing pressure from Tracy, making a little mistake, Tracy able to sneak through into the lead and then galloping away and opening up a major advantage over the Italian. The battle behind has been fairly constant throughout. It's been the likes of Greg Moore involved, Jimmy Vassar's been in there, and Scott Pruitt has been the man on the move to a certain extent. He started 7th and has gradually moved up, but also the man on the move has been Michael Andretti. He started 12th, he's now up into 6th position, and it's been a good drive so far from Michael. It's been well judged. He hasn't made any rash moves, except for hitting the back of Gilles de Ferran's car coming into the pits on one occasion. It's all been going quite well for him. But he's now up behind Scott Pruitt, who, as I mentioned, has been one of the faster competitors in the race so far. So it's going to be increasingly difficult for him to get past. We've had one round of pit stops. We've got a second round to go. Still a little gap, though, until we get to that point in the race. So all still to play for as Paul Tracy leads the field around. Still another lap at least behind the pace car, and there just confirmation of the top 6. David, it's been a bit of an up and down race, isn't it? Once the racing gets underway, sometimes it's settled down, and then all of a sudden we've seen all sorts of strange activities going on.
Well, I think it's the nature of the track, isn't it? Because very slippery on the inside, very dusty. People are desperate to get past people, and this causes a lot of accidents, and I think this is going to happen all the way through the race.
Yes, those sort of moves, you've got to take a risk, haven't you? At the end of the day, if you're going to get past somebody on this track, you're moving offline, you're going to take a risk. It's just a question of whether that risk pays off.
Well, some took the risk and misjudged it. Someone like Michael Andretti's taken a few risks, and he's looked very good at it, hasn't locked up, hasn't even looked like he was being in trouble. So you know, this shows the sort of maturity and how good a driver Michael Andretti is as well.
But of course, he needs the cooperation of those around him. And Guterman, when he went past Guterman earlier, Guterman, you know, sort of said, right, fair enough, you've got me.
Yeah, I think Guterman was asleep.
Yeah, I think he was a bit, yeah. He wasn't really aware that Michael was coming. I think Scott Pruitt is going to be a lot more aware.
Yeah, he'll be a lot tougher.
It's going to be harder to let Michael come through. So that may come down to a battle in the pits, but there's a lot that can happen here still. Got the back markers to deal with as well, although they're all bunched up again now, so it'll take them a few laps before they get amongst the back markers again. It's a 2.7 mile track, this one, so it's quite a long track. It means that on each restart they've got quite a lot of laps of free running before they start getting into the slower cars.
Yes, they have. Obviously this helps, and particularly for someone like Paul Tracy, he's got a clear track in front and he'll be trying to make that advantage. Also, these cautions are probably helping the Firestone tyre, because they're not surviving very well, as we saw earlier in the race with Zanardi. So perhaps this is good for Bridgestone. Firestone.
For Firestone, yes, that's right. Same company. Yes, that's right. And with the Goodyear runners, we've seen Tracy going well. We've also seen Andretti going well. And again, with Andretti, he's been able to keep that sort of consistent performance throughout each stint so far. He doesn't seem to have dropped off at all. He's still able to make passing manoeuvres whenever. So the Goodyear tyre holding up extremely well. On board with Andre Ribeiro, he's now moved up to 8th position, which is a good result. He's in the Lola, one of the very few Lolas in the race, with so many people having changed. But this is a good performance. They've made some changes, as we mentioned earlier in the programme. They've stiffened up the rear bulkhead of the car, and they found that's completely transformed the car. They've had to sort of go back to scratch again to set the car up in terms of springs and suspension, because the car now is feeling as it should do, and it's responding to change. That's the important thing. They were in Homestead in testing, they were trying so many different things, and whatever they did just didn't seem to make any difference.
Yeah, it's a very clear indication, isn't it, that something's wrong with the chassis. It's twisting somewhere. So, you know, they've got to start with a complete clean sheet of paper, haven't they, because their settings are, well, they're useless.
Yeah, but it's obviously working, because the Lola is now going well. On to the restart then. Paul Tracy retakes the green flag, and Alex Zanardi continues the chase. Now, are we going to see Zanardi close up in the opening laps of the restart, as we've seen him charge in the opening laps so far? Greg Moore 3rd, Vassar 4th, Pruitt 5th, Andretti in 6th place, and then Guterman in 7th place. And of course, in that last incident, we lost 3 of the guys that were in that group just behind. We lost Brian Herter, We lost Parker Johnston, although he's rejoined at the back of the field, and much the same for Mark Blundell. Tracy locks up. Zanardi also a little unstable under braking. Again, the tyres not up to temperature yet and just sort of pulling one way and the other.
Yeah, the tyres and these are actually, although they've got competition now, so the tyres are a bit softer, they're still quite a hardish tyre, and they do take a long time for the heat to come in, particularly for Goodyear.
Yeah, that's right, as we've seen so far in this race. And we've still got to mention, of course, the fact that Tracy is running with a bent front wishbone as a result of contact between himself and Parker Johnston in the pits earlier on. It was fairly, well, just a sort of smart contact between the two cars as he came out of his pit bay, having just been serviced by the Penske crew. Just clouted the rear wheel of Parker Johnston's car. It's just bent the front wishbone a little bit, but it doesn't seem to be slowing him down at all.
No, it doesn't. It shows that the car is still in good shape, which is good for Paul, because he's still able to lead the race and keep Zanardi behind him, which is important.
Yeah, that's right. It's basically the plan going according to plan for Tracy so far. Vassar, and now with Pruitt right behind him, and Andretti. This is a great little tussle that we're watching now. This is going to be quite entertaining, I think, here. Greg Moore in the blue and white car finished third here last year, the Canadian, who really has impressed many people in the championship over the last year or so. But behind him is the battle, the red car of Jimmy Vassar, the reigning champion. Then the yellow and red car, there it is. Full view of it on the onboard camera. Jimmy Vassar, the car of Scott Pruitt. Finished second place here last year. Very strong run indeed it was. But he's got Michael Andretti right behind him. And just one of these guys makes a little mistake, then we're going to see a complete change around here, I think. Let's just listen and watch a moment. Great view this from Vassar's car. You could hear that Honda engine, couldn't you? It sounded, the V8 Honda engine certainly was sounding fantastic from the onboard camera there with Jimmy Vassar. The view then from Jimmy Vassar's car, looking back at Scott Pruitt. Fourth place for Vassar, fifth place for Scott Pruitt. Just behind them, you just get the occasional glimpse of the black car of Michael Andretti lying in sixth position. And we're just enjoying watching this this view of Scott Pruitt's car, this slightly different view of the Surfers Paradise track as well, as it disappears behind us.
Yeah, you can see that at the beginning of the restart that Andretti dropped back a bit, but now he's starting to close back up again, so maybe his tyres are starting to get back up to proper temperature, and he's ready to attack.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's see if he can begin to put pressure on Scott Pruitt. Just a little bit further back there, as Pruitt comes in closer to Jimmy Vassar, hops over the curbs, just on the way into the chicane. Little short sprint between the two chicanes there, just up a gear and then back down again. And then they build up more speed as they come sweeping down. This is the bottom end of the circuit before they take the two left-handers. Andretti again has closed right up, and they're heading towards the sea now. Turn left again, and along the coast road, if you like, they're running parallel to the beach now. And onto another very fast stretch, split up by chicanes. And again, it's these chicanes making it so difficult to actually get alongside the other car. Vassar still holding off Scott Pruitt, and Michael Andretti right behind him. Through that double chicane, and that's where the car takes quite a pounding. You can see that they're not using the curves quite as heavily during the race, obviously with 65 laps as the scheduled distance, although we're somewhere over half distance now, and it's more likely it's probably more likely we're going to reach the time limit before we reach the limit on laps. 2 hours maximum on this race, and it's going to be fairly close. It looks as though we've got about 45 minutes still to run. There's still the all-important final pit stop to come, and now we go on board with Michael Andretti.
You can see there with the red lights in the steering wheel like they are in a lot of the Formula 1 cars now.
So that just gives him the indication as to when to actually change up.
Yeah, Michael trying to obviously catch them up and getting the power down, and you know, the old traction goes out, but it was well caught. And yes, the 3 lights, normally they are to give the driver indication of when you want to change gear, and so you don't have to keep looking at the rev counter all the time. You just see the light, bang, you know when to change gear.
Presumably you're not really even looking for the light, it's just that you're just aware that it's there.
You're not looking at the lights itself. You can just see the lights. They're quite bright, and as soon as it goes, normally it goes green, yellow, red. When it gets to red, bang, it's time to change.
Otherwise you're on the rev limiter and are wasting valuable time. And you're certainly having to move that gear lever pretty quickly in one of these cars. You've got some 800 brake horsepower from their turbocharged V8 engines. It's a 2.6 litre engine. It's very different rules to the Formula 1 engines, which are now 3 litres, of course. And in Formula 1, no turbocharging anymore. It hasn't existed for quite a few years now. But these cars have their turbochargers, but they're very limited in the amount of boost that they're allowed to run. And it's been even more limited this year, in fact, and they've cut it back by about 100 brake horsepower. But they don't run very high boost pressures. But obviously the V8 2.6 litre engines with turbo boost producing really similar power outputs to the 3 litre Formula 1 engines. A little bit more, in fact, in these cases.
Probably more. Yeah, they've cut back the boost, I think, from 45 inches to 40 inches. And what that has also enabled is that the drivers have been able to use the engine better in the slow corners because it's a lot more drivable. And with all the development and everything, they seem to be back to the same sort of horsepower that they had last year.
And driving a turbo engine, of course, is a slightly different technique, even with all the latest engine technology, where the turbo lag has, to a large extent, been eradicated, but it's still there a little bit.
Yes, it is still there. Well, looks like we've got yellows here.
Well, Parker Johnson off again. He's having a rather exciting afternoon,
I think he's given up for the day, hasn't he? That's it.
I think it's probably just as well, isn't it? You know, it hasn't really been going his way today. So I think poor old Parker has finally called it a day. He's been in the wars a little bit today. He had a contact on the first lap of the original start with Scott Pruitt. Let's have a look. This is what happened. Well, he was going pretty slowly at the time anyway.
That's probably a problem.
And something's locked up at the front there.
Yeah.
Something's broken at the front.
Something's broken. Probably from the accident that he had before.
Yeah.
I don't see that the leading guys are actually slowing down much, so obviously, yeah, this looks like a suspension failure.
Yeah, right front suspension has collapsed. It's probably just as well it did it there rather than through that quick chicane down on the end of that straight. So Parker Johnson finally out of this race. Incident-packed race for him is all over as the battle continues further back. Oh dear, and that's one of the Toyota cars. That's the car of Fangio this time. We've already seen PJ Jones's car go out with an engine fire, and now it's the turn of Juan Fangio to go out with a very similar exit by the look of things, and the Toyota men won't be terribly happy about that. Rather embarrassing, and I should think that may well cause a full yellow, I should think, for that one, because although it's not actually on the line, it's very much on the track.
Yeah, you can see the trucks coming out. They're going to pick that car up. Be interesting to see who comes in the pits as far as a tactical situation for the race.
Yes, now this could be a critical time to stop for the final part of the race. It's our 6th yellow flag, and we've got some 40 minutes of the race still to run. But we may well see people coming into the pits at this stage and hoping that they'd be able to get through to the end. If it stays green all the way, it's probably quite unlikely, but it may well be. Judging by what we've seen so far, that we'll have a few more yellows during the course of the afternoon, and therefore they'd be able to get away with it. So let's keep an eye on what's happening in the pits as well. The leaders coming past the stricken car of Juan Fangio, and the Toyota engine program still has some work to do, I think. They haven't really got it all working as they should do yet.
No, they've probably been a little bit disappointing, really, because I think last year didn't do them any good when they had the Eagle car. That wasn't very competitive. So, you know, they've got a Reynard chassis now, and, you know, it's the beginning of the program, so they've got time.
Well, there's the top 6 after 38 laps of 65. Tracy is our leader still from Zanardi, and Dario Franchitti back up into the points in 10th. Juan Fangio out of the smoking wreck of his car after a fairly dramatic engine failure by the looks of things. And Juan Fangio, who's been very much a sports car exponent in the recent years, and then has switched to single-seaters again over the last couple of years with Dan Gurney's team. But it's a big project to try and get this engine on the pace of the likes of Honda, Mercedes and Ford. But so far, not quite there, it has to be said. still a long way to go in terms of getting the competitiveness. These two cars running the engine like the cars of Hiro Matsushita and Max Papis as well. And Papis doing a good job at Homestead, but still the engine. This track really requires a lot of engine power. They've got long straights, second gear corners onto straights, so it's pretty vital that you've got some power. Now then, let's just see. We're getting cars coming into the pits. Yes, indeed we are. And this is an absolutely critical round of pit stops. So, David, let's concentrate on what goes on here.
Will they work on the front suspension? I mean, he's been leading the race. Will they work on it?
Yes, will they bother to even try and straighten up that bent front wishbone? Well, in fact, it's the steering arm. It's the steering arm that's bent rather than the wishbone. And that will simply have changed the tracking. And ironically, it might even have made it better, mightn't it?
Well, they haven't changed it, obviously, because that will take a little bit of time.
Now, did they get beaten out the pits there? There is Zanardi. Zanardi comes out behind Tracy. So Paul Tracy keeps the lead over Alex Zanardi, but it looks as though somebody else had managed to get out. I don't quite see
got out in front, didn't they?
Yeah, I don't quite see how they... Oh,
Dario stalled.
Who he really is having a tough afternoon, isn't he? He's making all those rookie errors that can be made. He's making them. He slid into his first pit stop and slewed sideways and was totally out of position. And now he's stalled it coming out of the pit lane. And out he goes at last. Right, well, of course, in the ITC, he hasn't been used to the old pit stop so much. Now, this was Jimmy Vasser in the pits. Is there a problem for Jimmy? Let's see what happened. Fuel hose came out. Wheel in the way.
Oh, just slipped over.
He's just trying to get the... Oh, that was more worrying. That was much more worrying, with Maurizio Gugelmin coming out and very nearly collecting the Chip Ganassi guys. They're trying to clear Vasser's wheel out of the way, but thankfully everybody was okay. They managed to sort it out. And there's the view over Surfers Paradise, the Gold Coast. We're somewhere south of Brisbane. How far from Brisbane are we here, David?
Well, to get to the Brisbane airport, which is pretty close to the city, it takes about an hour. But in Australian terms, that's not that long.
Yeah, in Australian terms, that's just down the road.
Yes, it is, just around the block.
So, a great area, though, for the race, great area for a holiday, too, or even to live. The climate, absolutely beautiful. Beautiful day on this occasion, and the weather all the way through the year, remarkably good. It doesn't really suffer the real highs and lows either, does it, in terms of temperature, this part of the world? You don't, although the weather's good, it doesn't really sort of get really, really hot.
No, it's fairly stable. It doesn't drop too low, it doesn't get too high, but sometimes, you've got a day-to-day, it's 30-odd degrees, that can cause some amazing thunderstorms in the evening. It may not affect this race, it looks pretty good so far, but I've been there, and the electrical storms are just out of this world.
Good fireworks display. Okay, so there the cars going around. Now you can see with some people deciding to stop and some not, it's made a few changes to our lineup as they follow on round. Let's take a look as we get a view from behind the pace car in a moment.
Yeah, Michael looks like he's back a bit in the line there.
Well, we have got maybe one or two cars that haven't stopped, so it's a little bit difficult to say. Yeah, I see what you mean, though. He's does seem quite a long way down. We've got DeFerrin
maybe
there.
A lot of people in front haven't come in. They've just stayed out there.
Yeah, quite possible. So we hopefully we'll get a clearer idea of that once the cars get underway again. This is just another replay of that incident, and it was the wheelman at the back, seeing that wheel hadn't been moved out of the way, leapt to get it out of the way, and then behind, out comes Maurizio Gugelmin, and just
that was close.
The ankle of the Chip Ganassi guys. That really was a little too close for comfort, but thankfully everybody got away with it. But pit stops always a critical time, and always in many ways the most dangerous time for the crew members and for the drivers in some ways, because it can easily go wrong, as we saw earlier when there was contact between Tracy and Johnson, although they seem to get away with it.
Well, there's always a lot of talk, isn't there, about the drivers and how dangerous the sport is, but you know, you've got to spare a thought for the guys in the pits, because they're the ones, when all the cars are screaming into the pits, they're out there changing the wheels, they're not quite aware of what's happening around them, they're trying to do the best job they can, and accidents can happen, and these guys can get hurt.
Just looking at that lineup, Pruitt has moved up to third place. He's got himself ahead of Vasser, so it looks as though there's been a pretty stunning stop from the Brahma Sports team, and they've got Scott Pruitt out in third place, and that really changes things around a little bit, because he'd been bottled up behind Jimmy Vasser for ages. Now Greg Moore seems to have dropped back down the order a little bit as well.
He's just in front of Michael, isn't he?
Right, so he's dropped back a little bit. Michael seems a bit further back, and so that pit stop fairly critical. And the question is whether they can now run it all the way to the checkered flag. With this yellow, it's probably quite likely that they will be able to be honest. By the time this yellow has finished, and even if it then stays green all the way, they should be okay on fuel to make it without another stop. That, by the way, the promotion for next week's race. So round they come, and Paul Tracy, race leader. We've got one car in the lineup just ahead of him that hasn't come into the pits, but that shouldn't cause too many problems when they get the restart underway again. Pruitt now in third place, Vassar in fourth position in the lineup, and then fifth place for Gugelmin by the looks of things. So Gugelmin's got himself back ahead of Andretti at least. And Andretti's got all his work to do once more. The car leading them round, by the way, an interesting car, that's Arndt Meyer, the German, who's having his first ever IndyCar race here this weekend. And the 24-year-old who finished runner-up in the German Formula 3 Championship to Jarno Trulli last year is doing a selected program. He's sharing this car with Dennis Vitolo, who claimed fame last time out by collecting Gilles de Ferran, the race leader in Homestead. Now Arndt Meyer has got the focus of Paul Tracy's attention on him as the race gets underway again. Green flag flies, and Meyer will be desperate to get out of the way. He will not want to get involved in this battling going on between Tracy. Oh, he's gonna, oh, what has he done? Arndt Meyer, I said he wouldn't get in the way of Paul Tracy, but it's exactly what he did. What on earth was he doing? Surely he knew the leaders were behind him. And why Arndt Meyer?
Little bit of glory there, didn't he, leading everyone?
He did, didn't he? What he thought he was doing, trying to outbrake Tracy into the first corner. And now Zanardi. Zanardi's down the inside, but can he make the corner?
He's got him back.
Gone too high, and there's contact between the two of them. Great stuff. Oh, it's gone all wrong. So Zanardi, they've made contact. Oh, no. What are you doing, boys? That was such a good race between them. It looked as though they were going to have such a good battle.
Oh, that's a sad look, isn't it?
Disappointment for Paul Tracy's girlfriend, Alex Zanardi, out. And what were they doing? They had that race. It was such a good battle between them, and they've thrown it all away. Well, we'll have to look at the replay there, David, I think, to see exactly what happened. But what a shame.
Well, they weren't really giving each other much room, were they? They were so desperate to get past each other. And it all started off back in the first corner when...
oh, that's Dario. That's Dario's out as well, so there's more problems. We've got another yellow flag. This is going to be the most yellow flags, I think, on record in this race. And, yeah, as you say, they were both racing hard. And it was Arndt Meyer, really, that caused all that in the first place. What he thought he was doing, trying to battle with Paul Tracy, I just do not know. It looks as though they may well be able to get Zanardi's car restarted, and he's going to be able to join the back of the line. I don't know if there was much damage. His car actually went up in the air, didn't it?
Yeah, but it sort of came down. It doesn't seem to be too much damage where you see Tracy's right front. Well, it was slightly bent before, but it's definitely bent now.
Yes, that's right. If there was any doubt before, there certainly isn't now. Parker Johnson's down there, because that's where he came to an end.
He probably wants to get out and help everyone again.
What was Arndt Meyer doing here?
I got no idea.
Suddenly seemed to realise, lock up everything, go down the escape road, by which time it was almost too late for Tracy anyway. So Tracy bounces across the grass, but of course that gave Zanardi a run on Paul Tracy. Very odd. Well, Meyer sort of almost seemed to get...
He's done the late braking, hasn't he?
What was he doing on the outside anyway? He should have been down on the inside and sort of backed off well early, shouldn't he?
Well, look, you know, Tracy's gone across the grass there. That wouldn't have done his tyres much good because a bit of grass and grit and dirt on the tyres, and obviously would have lost a little bit of traction.
Then this was the initial move. Zanardi then taking advantage of that, getting down the inside, getting past Paul Tracy.
But then he's trying to tighten the line up on the exit. You can see he's well trying to close it up, and because Paul's just tried to get past. Now they've had another go at each other again.
Yeah, now you see there, because they actually got away with the initial part, but then they're side by side, and really that was Alex cutting across Tracy. I mean, he was trying to block him to stop him coming in the inside for the next corner.
I think Tracy could have had him on the inside, but obviously that wasn't to be, was it?
No, that's right. Alex, I think, really should have given him that little bit more room. Well, he's paid the penalty anyway. I mean, he's put himself out of the action as well. But what a shame, because those two were giving us such a good demonstration of what hard racing should be all about without going wrong. And then it did go wrong, so it's such a disappointment. And Paul Tracy was out to win that race, wasn't he?
He was. I think he was looking very strong indeed, and unfortunately...
He was your man, David.
He was my man. I don't know. What's he doing? But he's obviously talking to Parker about it.
Commiserations for Paul Tracy. So, disappointment there for Paul Tracy, out of the race. And we've got something like 25 minutes to go. And we're calling it in minutes because there's no way it's going to go to the end of its allotted 65 laps. A maximum length of 2 hours from the start of the restart, that is. It's been a long afternoon, really, with the initial race getting underway some 2.5 hours ago. And still we've got this race to run, and still it's undecided, because with the two front runners, Zanardi and Tracy, out of this race, they've been battling for the lead of this race throughout the entire distance so far. They're both out of it now, and that means that Scott Pruitt is leading this race, because he took the advantage on the last round of pit stops. He was sitting in third place on the yellow flag just before this all happened, and it means that Scott Pruitt is now leading, unless he got tied up. We didn't really see what was happening to the guys behind, because we were so busy concentrating on the action between Zanardi and Tracy.
Well, that's right, and also don't forget Michael Andretti's there somewhere, and he won the first race, and he looks like he's going to pick up some good points to extend that lead in the championship.
That's the point, yeah. Also Jimmy Vassar's there. He was third in the first race.
Oh, that's right, yes, and he's up there too.
So, yeah, Andretti and Vassar both looking quite strong at the moment in championship terms, but what a disappointment for Tracy, because he was second in the opening race of the season, leading here in great shape. He was able to pull away from Zanardi once he got past, and now it's all over as a result of the contact between them. But you really, you do have to go back. Well, A, you go back to the incident with Art Meyer, and then B, you go back to the fact that really they just, in the end, didn't give each other quite the space they needed to. Difficult to see. It'd be nice to see it from some different angles to see just how alongside Paul Tracy was at that point. But it did certainly look as though Alex was being a bit over-keen in squeezing the Canadian down. So, there's Pruitt now leading behind the yellows, with Vassar second, Guterman in third, Moore is fourth, and there Michael in fifth place now. So, all change, and it means that some of those guys who were in trouble earlier in the race have now moved up. Zanard into the pits.
He's doing up his belts by the look of things. It's, it's very difficult. You can't really do your belts when you're sitting inside the car. You need someone from the outside to come and do that.
He's got underway. That's all it was by the looks of things. Nothing else. They haven't done anything to the car itself. So he's going to start at the back of the line, and that should cause some fireworks as he tries to work his way up.
Yeah, unfortunately it has put him out of contention, I think, and it'd be interesting to see if Art Myers actually continued, because he looked like he sort of got through it, although he caused it. He got through, and he's probably still going.
Yeah, he probably is. Yes, that's right. Well, he's had a fairly dramatic introduction.
Well, these people will be talking about it now, won't they?
Yeah. Everybody will be talking about Art Meyer. Did you see him? Yes, that's right. And not quite the impact I think he wanted to make, but anyway, at least his name will be known. And it's good to see some more European drivers coming into the championship as well. We've got a couple of Brits in there this year, of course, Mark Blundell, and we've got a Scotsman, Dario Franchitti, in there. And now we've got a German Art Meyer in there as well. So it's good to have the international interest. We've got some Italians in the shape of Zanardi and Papis, and many Brazilians, of course. So it's good news, but it's not such good news when they drive like that. And I think he's going to get a bit of a dressing down from some of his colleagues out there at the end of the race.
Yeah, I think they'll have a few harsh words to say to old Art Meyer, but no, here we go again.
Now, this is a replay. Now that, as you say, Zanardi squeezed him a bit there. Now I want to see this. I wonder if we've still got it from this view.
Looks like they've both... Well, yeah, Zanardi looks a little bit like he's gone across, and, and Tracy's moving at the same time. So
yeah. When you look at it from that
they've taken each other out a little bit.
It's pretty much 50-50, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess that's the price they pay. But what a shame as they come back to that point, really. It's just such a disappointing way for it to end for both of them, when they've both been the class of this race.
Well, they have been. They would look like they were the ones who were going to win this race, but, it's all changed. That's history now. This is what's happening now, and we should be coming up to a restart soon.
And Scott Pruitt is the race leader as he comes up to take the green flag for the restart. We've got some 24 minutes of the race still to run. Green flag flies, and Scott Pruitt leads. Now he's got Jimmy Vasser behind him. I want to see how quickly, if at all, Pruitt is able to pull away, because he's been one of the fastest guys on the track this afternoon. No doubt about that. He's been quick all the time, and although he was only 7th on the grid, as we mentioned earlier, he was very quick in this morning's warm-up in his own car, rather than in the spare car of Raoul Boesel, which he had to use in qualifying, and immediately he's beginning to make his presence felt. Yeah, pulling away. Vasser's under pressure from Gugelmin for 2nd place, but Vasser is not able to maintain the pace that Pruitt is showing already in this opening lap. Greg Moore in 4th position, then Michael Andretti in 5th place, and Andre Ribeiro 6th. Well, there you go. The Lola is up into 6th place, and that will give the Huntington crew a bit of a lift. It's been a bit of a tough week for them with the closure of the Formula 1 project. Look at this. Gugelmin was slow out of the chicane, and Greg Moore's had an opportunity. Oh, they're almost touching wheels again. This looks like it could end in tears, as Moore trying to get the opportunity to get past Gugelmin.
Very difficult to obviously get past there. It was the wrong place really for him to attack.
And Michael Andretti's right behind Greg Moore as well, as they continue this little tussle. Up front, Scott Pruitt leads. Jimmy Vasser is in 2nd place, and then you've got Gugelmin in 3rd. Greg Moore there in 4th place. Michael Andretti in 5th position. And Andretti, having made contact with Gilles de Ferran's car earlier, and having had a fairly exciting time working his way up from 12th place on the grid. Now it's try and get past Canadian. We are on board with Zanardi, and he's just gone past Patrick Carpentier, and Alex Zanardi is now the guy who's got to try and make up as much ground as possible to get back into the points, because this is now turning into a poor start to the season for one of the favourites, the Italian, who's had pole position in both places. He's now down in 17th place. He had a 7th place finish in Homestead. He desperately needs some points here at Surfers Paradise, and it's all going away from him just when it looked so strong at the beginning of the season. Zanardi really has got some work to do here. Now let's hope we can get an idea of his progress as we go through the rest of this race. Michael Andretti there, just in behind Greg Moore. Andre Ribeiro staying with them pretty well, though.
Yes, he is. They'll be very pleased with his performance. Obviously, there's been a lot of attrition ahead of him, but this is a good confidence boosting for the team, and they'll be working hard for the next race as well.
Dropping back a little bit on the run, down towards the chicane. Andretti, though,
starting to use those curves.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? Beginning to push that little bit harder. And he knows as well as anybody how things can change here at this race, because he's been in this position. That race a couple of years ago, the 95 race, when he was leading for so much of the race, he basically dominated that race, then lost 2nd gear, still kept the lead of the race, and then crashed on the last lap. And it is that sort of racetrack that the concentration needs to be absolutely total, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's no margin for error at all, and you know, Andretti's been through a lot, and obviously he doesn't want that to happen again, and he's in a strong position, but Pruitt looks like he's in a very good commanding control of the situation.
Yeah, he's managed to pull away a bit from Vasser. Well, Vasser's now come back at him a bit. If he can just stabilise it there, I think Pruitt will be quite happy about that. We've seen that actually getting past somebody means you've got to be right under their rear wing to have any opportunity to do that at all. And Vasser's nowhere near that at the moment. So Pruitt now can just sort of get into a little bit of a rhythm, a leading rhythm. He's never won a race, you know. He's never. He has won. Yes, he did win the Michigan race in just a couple of years ago. That was one of the closest ever finishes, in fact, for Pruitt. But that was on the high-speed oval. He's never won on a track where you'd in fact expect him to win, because he's more of a road course driver than he is an oval driver in some ways.
Yeah, he spent a lot of years in go-karts.
Looking at Alex Zanardi going past Bobby Rahal. So it looks as though... Or are we? Or are we?
We tried.
Did he stay in front or not? Looks as though he may have got away with it, but does Rahal come back past down the next straight? That's the question. Well, we come back to Jimmy Vasser now. This is the teammate's car, lying in 2nd place. But Alex Zanardi is obviously giving it his all.
He's certainly trying. He sort of put his hand up. I think that was a sort of, sorry about that one.
Yeah, I didn't mean to nearly take you off into the chicane, but it looks as though he may have got away with it. And he's got to go for it, hasn't he? I mean, he's got nothing to lose.
He's got to get some points on the board for the championship.
He really
he can get to 12th and get a point, so I think, does he get a point for pole position or not?
No, he gets a point for most laps led, but I don't know, actually that'll be quite a close thing. He may get that. It'll be quite even between him and Zanardi, I think, on him and Tracy on the most laps led in this race. And if Pruitt stays up front all the way to the flag, then he's going to be fairly close to it as well.
Well, it's who really leads on the last lap and goes across the start-finish line, isn't it?
That's right, and we've still got a little way to go before we find that out. Some 16 minutes or so before the checkered flag comes out. And the sun beginning to throw some slightly longer shadows around the place now as the day gets a little bit later. On board with Andre Ribeiro now, on board that Lola, running quite well now, up into 6th position. And this will give the Tasman team a little bit of a boost after a difficult start to the season in Homestead, where they really just weren't on the pace at all. And Ribeiro's now got that car running very competitively indeed. Race winner on 2 occasions last year. And the Honda Power, obviously a major part of that. They've got Firestone tyres as well. But it is great to see that in the race conditions he seems to be running pretty much the same pace as the other Reynards, or as the Reynards out there.
Yes, he's got Gilles de Ferran right behind him, and he'll be glad. He's had a few knocks, hasn't he, this race, and he'll be glad to be in there. But Ribeiro's doing a good job here, and obviously the Lola has improved a lot since the first race.
Well, let's hope they can keep that sort of progress. They need it. They need this team to do well. It's their main representative now in the championship, and there's no reason why it shouldn't with this sort of performance when they seem to have found the magic key with the car in that testing just recently. And if they can build on that now, then they've got a good opportunity to get right on the pace. 2 quick drivers, Andre Ribeiro and Adrian Fernandez is the other driver, the Mexican who also had a race victory last year. So they will be very relieved, I should think, above all else, to see the car actually running quite competitively. Horrible situation to go into a season, do the first race of the season, and feel that you've got a car that just simply isn't going to give you a chance of a race victory throughout the whole year.
No, there's nothing worse for a driver for that, absolutely, because you start the season, everyone's motivated, and all of a sudden the car's just not responding. It just demotes everyone, and that's why a lot of the teams changed to Reynard for that situation.
Of course, it is the big difference between this and Grand Prix racing. In Grand Prix racing, you're stuck with it, aren't you? If you've got a bad car at the beginning of the season, there's not an awful lot you can do about it. And this form of racing, if you've got a bad car, you go and buy another one.
Well, that's right. I've been in that situation with Formula One, and it would have been nice to have been able to go and buy a new one.
Yeah, go and buy somebody's second-hand Williams or something. So back with the lead pack, and things have settled down again, rather, after the last yellow flag. Things are a little calmer for a while. Scott Pruitt the leader over Jimmy Vasser. Gugelmin in 3rd. Again, another strong run from Gugelmin here in Australia. He always seems to go well here. Remarkable record he has around this street track. Behind Gugelmin's Greg Moore, then Michael Andretti, and then Andre Ribeiro in the top 6 as well. But Scott Pruitt is driving a great race so far. Gugelmin's getting closer to Vasser, a little bit closer just there as they came down past the over the start-finish line. Gugelmin beginning to threaten again a little bit. And we go on board now with Bobby Rahal. I wonder if we can see Zanardi ahead of us. Oh, well, he decided to take the same line as Zanardi there.
I don't know why he just didn't go down the escape road, but...
no, that's right.
He's having a tough time, isn't he, Rahal?
Yeah, they're not having as good a start to the season as I would have expected. They've got a Reynard chassis.
Gugelmin.
Oh, Gugelmin spun it. Oh, no. Maurizio Gugelmin. Well, there you go. I put the commentator's curse on him. I said how well he goes here in Australia. Always gets a good result. And what did he do the very next lap? He's had an incident, and I wonder if that was actually an attempt to get past Vasser that has ended in tears. Maurizio Gugelmin was running it in 3rd place, and he is stuck, and I don't know whether he's going to be able to get going again.
Well, they'll probably get him going. Here we are.
Talk us through it, David. Let's see what happens.
Well, he's obviously gone for the inside move on Vasser. And again, you can see he's just starting to lock up. The rears have gone. Again, everyone seems to do that. They just pivot round the front. Just nailed Vasser, and Vasser went into the wall as well, so it'd be interesting to see if he continues. Yeah, well, it looks as though it may have bent the front tracking again. Greg Moore has now gone up into 2nd position then. Greg Moore is now 2nd because Vasser was behind Pruitt. Pruitt is now our leader.
We've got another yellow flag, presumably. I don't know if they have, actually, because he's just off the track. But it sounds like we may have well gone to a full course yellow. Yes, we have. The 8th caution of this race. And I'm sure that more of these laps have been run under yellow flag than they have under green flag.
Yeah, well, there you are. You've got Pruitt in front, Moore, and there's Andretti.
Yeah, well, there he is. Yeah, Andretti, dead right. He's, and of course, in terms of the championship, he is now the strong man, the winner of the first race, third at the moment in this race. That would put him in a commanding lead. Into the pits comes Jimmy Vasser, and it obviously has done some damage to the front. Has he got a puncture there? Or you can see the tracking's miles out, isn't it?
There could be a puncture because the left front looked like it was riding a little bit high, so hopefully it's just a quick change of tyres and getting back out again.
Looks to me as though the front wheels are towing out quite a lot as well, which means that they're sort of pointing outwards from each other. And he's back into the race. I mean, he can finish off the race like that. It might handle a bit funny, but there we are. So, positions after 50 laps. Scott Pruitt, the leader, from Greg Moore in second, Andretti third, Ribeiro now fourth, Gilles de Ferran in 5th place, and Richie Hearn in 6th. Richie Hearn was in one of the incidents earlier on in the race. He came to complete stop, and there he is in 6th place. It really is a race that you just got to stay in there somehow or other, and you'll score some points, because the rate of attrition has just been incredible throughout the course of the race so far. Incidents, accidents, blow-ups, and all sorts of problems. And the net result at the moment is that Scott Pruitt is heading for what could be his first ever street circuit win and his second ever IndyCar win. He's driven superbly this afternoon, but can he keep it all together now throughout the rest of the race? We haven't got that much longer to go. 10 minutes to go, according to my watch, just over 10 minutes to go, according to my watch, until we reach the maximum 2-hour limit. And Pruitt now, he's got Greg Moore behind him, and you can't count Greg Moore out of the equation because he's a bit of a hard charger. I could easily see something happening there.
We've got 10 minutes left. It's going to be a real sprint race to the finish, isn't it? Which will, again, could cause incidents. We could have another yellow, but it's interesting to see that Richie Hearn, and because he's in a Lola, so we've got 2 Lolas in the top 6.
That's right, yes, that's a good point, and that will really give him a big boost. There's Bobby Rahal again on board with him. And yeah, we were just talking a minute ago, weren't we, about his lack of performance. This is a surprise. He's got a Reynard chassis, he's got a Ford engine, and there's Guterman in for repairs. So it's worth getting out. It's worth doing your repairs and getting out there, because who knows what's going to happen in the rest of this race. You could still score some points. So even if you've got 3 wheels on your wagon, I think you've got to get it out there and keep trying. You might get into the top 12.
The thing is, you can lose the championship by 1 point, so you need as many points as possible.
Yeah, every point is so worthwhile.
Paradise, Australia. The Indy Carnival Australia continues into the glare of the late afternoon sun. Goes race leader Scott Pruitt with Greg Moore, Michael Andretti, Andre Ribeiro, Gilles de Ferran, and Richie Hearn behind him as we prepare to go green one more time. Now the race has been declared officially a timed race. 50 laps are complete of the 65 originally scheduled. But we will have 10 minutes to go in the race. We will be with you.
Okay, so it's a restart, and Scott Pruitt goes across the line and takes the green flag. And Greg Moore has dropped away a little bit in second. 3rd place for Michael Andretti. I'm sorry about the several voices you're getting at the moment. We're just trying to get that sorted out. We should be able to clear it up in a moment. We're also hearing some of the American commentary as Scott Pruitt comes through with Greg Moore in second, Michael Andretti in 3rd place.
And now he runs 3rd here in Surfers. Another guy who's making a move is Gilles de Ferran.
That's better. We've managed to clear the lines a little bit now, and now we can concentrate on exactly what's happening. It looks as though Michael Andretti is now putting Greg Moore under increasing pressure for 2nd. Moore got a little bit left behind at the start, and Pruitt has certainly got the ability to just charge on the opening laps on these green flags, doesn't he? We saw it earlier, David. He's done exactly the same again.
Well, don't forget he's done thousands of miles on these tyres, so he knows what to do on the restart of these tyres. He would have been practicing that, and you know, he's using that to good effect, isn't he?
He is, yeah. So Andretti 3rd, and he will be, Greg Moore was a bit sideways through that last chicane. Michael Andretti will be very aware of the fact that in the championship terms, a 3rd place here is actually very, very good, especially starting from 12th. I mean, he cannot really have expected to come into this race on a track so difficult to overtake, starting in 12th place and come away with the 3rd place finish and with the points for 3rd place, which will see him have quite a big lead in the championship. His main rivals in the series, Tracy out of the race in that accident with Alex Zanardi. Alex Zanardi himself way back, trying to fight his way back up. Jimmy Vasser is way back, having had that incident just now with Maurizio Gutermin. So really, Michael just has to stay here in the top 3, and he's in perfect position.
Well, Michael will be actually very happy, I think, with a 3rd place, but obviously he'll be trying to put pressure on more to pick up more points and perhaps a win. But, you know, 3rd place for that car, you know, it's the first street course race for that car, and he's up into 3rd. It's not as fast as he probably would like, but, you know, Michael's used his head, hasn't he, all day, and he's definitely done the job, and hopefully he can maintain a good finish here.
That's right, yes. I think he's done the job. It's been a professional job. It's been exactly what's been needed. And the Swift chassis has again proved itself, hasn't it? I mean, we saw its performance on the oval track at Homestead. We're on a completely different kind of racetrack here. We've got bumps, we've got 90-degree corners, we've got second gear corners, we've got corners where you need traction, you need the ability to put the power down, and the Swift has again proven that it's a top car.
Yeah, not only that, I think what we should be looking at is a new car, so the reliability of the car has been excellent.
That's a very good point, and the team were actually, before this race, very concerned about gearbox. They had a lot of gearbox worries. They've had some failures going on. This is Zanardi, by the way, still on his charge. He's trying to get past Raul Boesel, but just going back to that reliability for a moment, Michael Andretti's car has performed absolutely superbly, both at Homestead and here at Surfers Paradise. No sign of any gearbox trouble so far, and well, I hope we don't put the curse on him as well, but everything going extremely well. Look at this, Zanardi's now 7th. So he is at some points.
Just shows you just can't give up in these races, and he's charging up the field, and you know, 7th is good points, and obviously he's trying to get more.
Yeah, he was 7th in the first race too at Homestead, so
he wants to get higher than them, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And he had pole position in both. It's still disappointing to end up with a 7th place finish, but well, it'd be good if he can get past Raul Boesel. I wonder if we're going to see a dramatic move here. We've seen 1 or 2 from Zanardi already today, and he got past Rahal, for example. Boesel's definitely having an eye on his mirrors now.
Yeah, he's putting a lot of pressure on him, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, the question is Boesel going to succumb to that pressure? Zanardi just filling the mirrors, isn't he? He's just putting his car in the mirrors, making sure Boesel is always aware of him, and to a certain extent slightly worried by him. Now trying to gain ground out of the chicane, gets on the throttle, up through the gears. Doesn't seem to be much difference in the performance of the Ford and the Honda engines on sheer acceleration. It's got to be under braking that Zanardi makes his move.
Yeah, Zanardi's car's working better, isn't it? You can see he's entering the corner faster, and he gets in there, gets right behind him, but just, you know, again, get the power on. It's interesting to see that sun very low, very difficult for the drivers to see the corner, see the braking point. It actually makes it really difficult driving.
And on a street track where you've got to be inch perfect, it's even worse, isn't it?
Yes, that sun's getting quite low now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's getting on, the time is getting on. There's been a long afternoon's work. They've been out there for sort of nearly 3 hours, one way or another, and so it's been a long afternoon, and Zanardi still trying to get up into 6th position. But there is our race leader, that's Scott Pruitt, and it looks good for Scott Pruitt. He's just got to finish off about another 4 or 5 minutes now, and I don't think there's any problems about the pace. He's managed to pull away from Greg Moore. He's maintained this position over the last few laps, and I don't think he's going to have too many difficulties in staying there as long as the reliability plays its part. This really would be a great result for the team, the Brahma Sports team. It's a guy called Pat Patrick who runs this team, and he's one of the sort of longest standing team owners in the sport. He took a bit of a break. He's had a lot of success in the past. He actually took Emerson Fittipaldi to his IndyCar crown some years ago at the end of the 80s. Took a break from the championship and then came back in with the whole Firestone project. They set up the team with Scott Pruitt, and this really would be such a reward for him, another reward for all that work that he's put in for the Firestone with their development over the last few years, and a justified reward for the team as well. A new team set up this year. They've got sponsorship from Brahma Beers, and teamed up with Raul Boesel. Strong driver lineup, strong team, and it looks as though they're going to get their deserved result.
Well, I certainly hope so, because Scott's worked very hard. You know, he wasn't racing, he was testing a lot for Firestone. They got in, they didn't have huge budget to do everything. They're now on the final lap, and if he keeps it all together, he's looking good, isn't he?
He is, isn't he? Fantastic stuff for Scott Pruitt, the 36-year-old from Sacramento in California. Come up through the ranks of sports car racing, but he's been racing in the PPG Kart Series since 1988 on and off. There's Michael Andretti, third place, and that third place will be excellent news in terms of the championship for him. 12 points to add to the 21 that he scored in Homestead, and that will take him to a clear championship lead. But Scott Pruitt, in fact, won't be too far behind, because Pruitt finished in 5th place in the first race at Homestead. He'll take the 20 points for the win here in Surfers Paradise, and that will move him up into 2nd position in the championship. And again, we're seeing a very good start to the season from Scott Pruitt, leader of the championship in the early stages last year. Let's hope that luck stays with him a little bit more this year, and that he can maintain this sort of performance all the way through to the final rounds.
Yeah, they're looking very strong, aren't they? But I think Greg Moore finished well last race as well, so he's got good championship points, and he's definitely going to be up there in the championship.
Yeah, that's right. Greg Moore was 4th in Homestead. It's a good point. He's 2nd here, so he has run consistently.
He's slowing down a bit, isn't he? He's just making sure he's got that win.
That's right, yes. He's not going to take any risks at the end. These 3 guys are going to be very close in the championship at the end
last corner.
Of this run. The last corner for Scott Pruitt, and it's going to be Pruitt after a long afternoon here. Surfers Paradise victory goes to Scott Pruitt and the Brahma Sports team. A superb achievement for Scott Pruitt as he crosses the line. Greg Moore comes through in 2nd.
Somehow they don't
have
look
they
like
brought
that's
the checkered out? Well, I'm not sure if they had. I think what they did there was they cocked up on the timing, and they thought that they were going to time, because it's the 2-hour mark, I think, is going to to come up at the end of this lap.
I think Scott's
as surprised
put his foot down again, hasn't he?
I think he's as surprised as we are, because he was told it was the last lap. He backed off, and now Greg Moore's a little bit closer, and suddenly he's got to do it all over again. And I should think these last 2.7 miles will now really feel like a long way.
Yes, I'm sure the pressure's intense quite a bit now. He backed off. It looked like he backed off, and he didn't see the checkered flag and thought, oh my God, I've got to keep going.
Yeah. So somebody got the sums wrong there on trying to say it was the last lap. I think this one definitely will be. The 2-hour mark being reached at the end of this lap, and Pruitt coming through to take the win, and mean that his championship challenge is well and truly on track. Firestone taking the victory here then. It will be a Firestone 1-2 with Goodyear in 3rd place. They had a 1-2-3 here last year, so perhaps not quite as good, but they've still shown the class. Goodyear have been in good shape. Paul Tracy led for much of the race. Really, I think he would have won this race if it hadn't been for the incident with Alex Zanardi. But motor racing's all ifs, buts and wherefores. And Scott Pruitt is the guy who locks up on the last corner of the last lap, but keeps it all together. And this time, I think the checkered flag will be awaiting him. Let's see as they come across the line. Is the man with the checkered flag ready for him? Yes, he is. Across he goes. So Scott Pruitt is the winner here in Australia. Round 2 of the championship after a nail-biting afternoon. It must be absolutely exhausting for them on the pit wall to see Scott finally make his way through. Started 7th, wins the race. A great result for Greg Moore in 2nd position, and he is now maturing into somebody who really is capable of scoring points consistently. Greg Moore's shown he's had the pace in the past, the ability, but now he's showing the consistency that will perhaps mark him out to be one of the future champions of this form of racing.
Well, he's certainly got the talent, that's for sure. He's a very, very strong competitor, and you can see there the team are just ecstatic, aren't they?
Absolutely delighted. Well, it's been a long afternoon, as I mentioned. So many incidents, a lot of action, and Scott Pruitt has come through it all to take the victory for the Brahma Sports team. Greg Moore slows down to pick up Paul Tracy. That's a nice move. Tracy getting a lift back to the pits from that corner where he suffered the accident with Alex Zanardi when they were battling for the lead. And there's Michael Andretti, who finished in 3rd place, coming up to congratulate Scott Pruitt. But a good drive that from Andretti, a sensible drive. He made the moves when he needed to. He showed the aggression when it was the right time and the right place, and the rest of the time he sat there and picked up the pieces when other people fell by the wayside.
For sure. I think at Homestead the car was good and it won the race for him. This one, Michael really did the business, and he brought that car into 3rd place.
Yes, and what a great start to the season it is for Newman Haas and for Swift to be leading the championship after the first 2 races now. No, I don't think anybody would have guessed that they would have come onto the scene quite so quickly and established themselves as the team to beat with that new car. And I can imagine that Carl Haas will be chewing away on his cigar and smiling quietly to himself about his decision to go for the Swift chassis. There's the top 6. Michael Andretti 3rd, Zanardi 4th in the end. We didn't see him take those last few places at the end, but he got 4th. And that means that he does come away from this race with a good selection of points. Further down the list, and Mark Blundell still finished in 8th place in spite of his problems. Dario Franchitti scores his first ever kart PPG points with 9th place. Bobby Rahal in 10th place in the end. The survivors still scoring points. And Pruitt brings the car back down to the start-finish area, and the team are there to congratulate him. Great stuff. Well, there, all the congratulations from the team for Scott Pruitt and Pat Patrick. The team boss must be absolutely over the moon about that. He's been involved in kart series or in IndyCar racing for over 30 years now, initially as a sponsor, then as a team owner. Then he was the man who founded the Indy Lights Championship as well, returned back to the kart series in 1995, and then expanding his operation to 2 cars this year for Raul Boesel as well as Scott Pruitt. And Scott Pruitt, 92nd IndyCar race and his 2nd victory of his career, but a really good one this time. Earned that one all the way. So wife Judy there to congratulate Scott, and hopefully we may get the chance to just have a quick word with him. We're just waiting to see whether we're going to get an opportunity to actually have a word with him down on the start-finish line. Obviously he's got a few things to attend to down there. Oop, and now we seem to have lost the picture altogether. Let's come back, jolly good. Now I don't know if we're actually going to pick up the sound from this interview or not.
Tremendous problem. The second day, had to go to Raul's backup car. But the guys did a super job. The Firestones worked great all day long. I just got to say thanks again to Brahma, Firestone, Pennzoil. You know, we went through a lot this weekend, and to come out on top is just tremendous.
Big gamble by your crew, too, because you pitted early, figuring that maybe this thing wasn't going to go the distance as advertised.
Well, we didn't know, and well, you know, Pat, he's a gambling man, and he's the one who makes the calls, and it played out for us today. Terrific. Again, thanks to the crowd. Australia here, it's horrendous.
Well, a great win for Scott Pruitt today.
Yes, a great win, and you can see the delight. Scott Pruitt, it's been a long day. You can see that for him as well. And hopefully we've got Alex Zanardi now.
Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Point. Be sure and point. He says he's right on it. Hi, Joe. Alex Zanardi, such disappointment battling for the lead and then having to fight yourself all the way back from 4th. What were you feeling as you tried to make up racetrack?
Well, yeah, Gary, ask him if the double white flags helped him.
Okay. Alex Zanardi, did the double white flag help you to finally end up 4th place in that long drive back?
Well, definitely helped me when I had the accident with Paul to get back to the back of the group, but I was dead last, so I had to work my way up to 4th.
What happened in that incident as you battled with Paul Tracy? Do you think that could have been avoided at all?
Everything can be avoided in life, but unfortunately we were both racing hard, and we both always want very badly to be in front of everybody, and at that point I gained the lead, happened behind me, and I can't comment that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait a minute, hold on. They're still doing the interview. As soon as they get done with 10. Here we go. Now we're ready. Hey, Greg.
Looks as though we're going to get a word with Greg Moore as well.
1, 2, 3, 4, Dave, getting it? Okay.
Good job.
Well, Greg Moore, a podium finish. You like Australia, don't you?
Yeah, Australia's been real good to me, and I'm just delighted. It's a brand new car we brought here for the weekend, and we got 500 miles on it now. I just can't be so happy.
When you have a finish like this and you start looking at another road course just a week from now in Long Beach, what does it do psychologically for a driver?
It makes us really excited for next weekend. I mean, Long Beach has always been good to me in lights and IndyCar, and hopefully we'll do a little bit better than we did last year.
Good luck there.
Thank you.
Well, he's a very happy man as well. Greg Moore, the youngster who's finished in second place here today.
Not especially.
And added to his points tally, and that's 2 good starts to the championship.
I think the only thing, Bob, is what I was trying to tell you during the course of the race is Pruitt's team did the math early. They determined that they were going to go on the gamble that it was going to be a timed race.
Right.
So that was really the key. They did it back at the 50-minute mark.
So
that should be your...
With a bit of noise going on still, I'm afraid we can't quite get rid of our American colleagues at the moment. Still down in the pit lane.
So we're clear here, we're done?
Never mind, we can still enjoy the view. We're going to take a little bit of a break in a moment and then just come back with a look at the results of that second round of the PPG Kart World Series. Stay with us. Surface Paradise. And
was
just looking through some of the results and bits and pieces. The win for Scott Pruitt with Greg Moore in second place, Michael Andretti in third place, Alex Zanardi in fourth place.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a little look in a moment, just at looking back at some of the incidents of the race, because, David, there certainly were quite a lot. There's
I haven't, yes.
The look at the results, first of all. Scott Pruitt, the winner, Moore second, Andretti third. Great recovery for Zanardi to come back to fourth. De Ferran in fifth place, and Andre Ribeiro with that good result for the Lola in sixth position. And down in seventh, Raul Boesel, Mark Blundell and Dario Franchitti. So it's good to see the two Brits up there. And Dario, after a difficult afternoon, a few mistakes, but he still scored some points. Further down the list, you can see those guys who didn't quite make it into the points and those who failed to finish. The 16th place for Arndt Meyer. I don't know if he was still running at the end or not. I guess he was, because Guterman was still running at the end. So he was the guy that sort of set things in motion, didn't he, when there was that incident between Paul Tracy and Alex Zanardi. But it looks as though he did actually get to the end.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Well, a lot of people will be talking about him. Maybe not the right way, but it's be really interesting to see what happens at Long Beach. It's a quick turnaround for the teams. They've got to get ready very quickly, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. There's a lot of work to do. So there's been a fair bit of damage this weekend as well. So there's a lot of rebuilding work to be done at the end of it all. So we shall see exactly what happens. Now, actually, talking about next weekend and racing, I know you, David, you're actually should be out yourself, shouldn't you, for the first time? We haven't had a chance to talk about it. Let's just have a quick word. You're racing first round of the GTs next week.
That's right. I'm driving the new Panos Ford, and looking forward to that because the championship looks very healthy. We've got Mercedes, McLaren, BMW, Porsche, Panos. We've got Lotus. The depth of this championship now is amazing.
Great. Well, we wish you the best of luck, and we're looking forward to seeing some pictures of that on Eurosport. We're going to take a look back now at some of the incidents from this race today. There certainly have been a lot of them, and this is a replay of the accident that happened right at the start of today's activities. This was the accident between Christian Fittipaldi, and you'll see his car come from left-hand side of the picture across to the right. That's the red car just crossing the picture. The other car you can see damaged there is Gilles de Ferran. There was contact between the two of them as they came across the start-finish line at the end of the first lap, and that was the result. A very nasty accident for Christian Fittipaldi and a broken right leg. That was confirmed to us later on by Dr. Steve Olvey, the Chief Medical Officer of the kart medical team. But Christian, hopefully, we wish him a quick recovery from that broken leg. Back to Australia Live and Scott Pruitt on the top step of the podium.
Okay, trophy time.
Alongside him, Greg Moore
we have a third place
and
trophy.
Michael Andretti.
And Rob Nodet, you'd like to hand it over to Michael Andretti, Newman House Racing.
So third place there for Michael Andretti after starting in 12th
Second
place.
Trophy, of course, for the players for Site
a lot of
Team,
hard work.
driving the Reynard Mercedes, Greg Moore.
Greg Moore receives his trophy. A big smile from the young Canadian.
And again, the winner of the 1997 Sunbelt Indy Carnival, Scott Pruitt.
And there it is, the winner's trophy for Scott Pruitt. He's got those sunglasses on. I didn't think it'd be long before Scott got those sunglasses back on, Dave.
No, it does seem to be a bit of a tradition, doesn't it? The glasses come on.
Scott, we could
I think they're
get you
painted to
down
his face
here
most of the time.
just to say a few words on behalf of the Brahma Sports team. And no doubt a very excited Pat Patrick.
Well, first and foremost, I got to say thanks to my guys. They did a terrific job, the Brahma Sports guys, and to Brahma, Firestone, Pennzoil, they did a terrific job. We had a lot of problems this weekend. We broke our primary car the first day. Thanks to Raul, I qualified his car the second day after a bunch of problems with our car, and that really put a big load on the guys. Congratulations also to Michael and Greg. They had a strong race all race long. It's a nice way. This is one of my favorite places to come. Third last 2 years ago, second last year, first this year. Tom German did a hell of a job. But it's just been tremendous. I think I'm going to make this my second home. Thanks.
Nice words.
Big Gold Coast round of applause for the winner of the 1997 Sunbelt Indy Carnival, Scott Pruitt.
He seems to like your part of the world, David.
Yeah, it seems like that, doesn't it? It's always great to watch them when they try and plug all the sponsors that they're involved in.
Tradition.
Yes, you were saying they reckon they go to a special school.
Yeah, they go to a special academy for that, I think.
There's the point standings. Michael Andretti 5 points ahead of Scott Pruitt now. Greg Moore in third, and then there's a big gap back to Paul Tracy, Alex Zanardi, Jimmy Vasser, who are almost basically on the same points, 16, 16 and 15. But a bit of a lead for Andretti, Pruitt and Moore. But with only 7 points separating those three, really sets things up for the rest of the championship. Of course, we're only in the very, very early stages. A long way to go. You can't really start talking about championships yet. It's more about race victories and being on the podium. But that's exactly what Michael Andretti has done in the 2 opening races of this year's championship. And you've got to certainly rate him very highly as a championship contender for this year. If they can keep the performance of the Swift, if they can keep the reliability of the Swift as well as they have done so far, then they're in excellent shape.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a great result for Scott. Also Greg and the Swift, you know, because the Swift, you know, they'll be learning a lot from this race, and you can see that they're going to be strong all year.
Down here, in front of the podium,
no doubt about that.
area.
Every kind of track, I should think, by the look of things.
Coming out.
Street track oval.
And 3 very, very happy gentlemen.
The road courses, we've still got to see exactly on the road courses what they can do.
And,
but if they can perform like that here, then they should be all right. We're going to have another look at some of the other action that's happened throughout the race today.
A tremendous crash on the first lap with Christian Fittipaldi, who's fine, he's okay. In hospital with some leg injuries, but okay. Trophy's being held aloft now, of course, for the 700 million people who will view this
have a look at some of the others, the action from before to come through. We're going to have a little look at the replay of some of the moments and incidents that we've seen, and we're going to have a look now at the accident that occurred between Paul Tracy and Alex Zanardi. Now, David, just talk us through this accident again and see what exactly happened.
Well, this is where it all started, wasn't it? Because he's gone off trying to avoid that with that, what's his name?
Art
Meyer, yeah. So then he's gone onto the dirt, he's come on. This has caused a few problems. Again, here you see he's trying to brake on the inside, thinking, well, this guy's obviously going to let me through, and hasn't. And just squeezed him into that corner, which caused him to go off. Zanardi thinks he's going to take advantage of this whole thing, doesn't he? And he's setting himself up. Paul's trying to get back on the gas. And they come up to the next corner where it all starts to happen again. Zanardi's on the inside, locks up, they both lock up. He goes a bit wide, so Paul thinks, right, okay, go on the inside of him. You can see Zanardi's tightening up the line, and they've clashed. And they're just squeezed together again. And the end of the race for Paul Tracy.
Yeah, and nearly the end for Zanardi, although the car survived that little moment, swinging across in front of Tracy's car, and remarkably he came back up to finish in 4th place. He dropped down to 17th as a result of that, but Paul Tracy was out altogether with too much damage done to the front of his car. And we're also just going to take one more look at the incident that happened to Fittipaldi. Again, this was the explosion of car parts that occurred as he went into the wall at about 160 miles an hour. And after contact with Gilles de Ferran, across went Christian Fittipaldi and hit the wall again, and that may well be what actually damaged his leg, because the front of the car had already taken a very, very heavy impact. And so sadly Christian won't be racing in Long Beach as a result of that, but the good thing is that he's not seriously hurt, and that hopefully he'll be back out and running again soon in the championship and joining Michael Andretti in the Newman Haas Swift. While Michael's been having all the good luck over the last couple of races, Christian's been having the bad luck. He had a retirement in Homestead, and then this to finish here.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? Because, you know, Christian is in a good car, he's in a good situation, he's not having a good run, and it's a shame that actually he's broken his right leg, because if he'd broken his left leg, he perhaps could have got into the racing a bit earlier. It's a shame that he's broken any leg, but it would have been better to have been the left than the right.
That's a racing driver talking,
yeah,
the practicalities of it all. Yeah, well, so Christian will hopefully be on the mend as quickly as possible. And this, just looking back at, again, that was the
He's
shunt.
gone in hard, hasn't he?
Yeah, you can really see the angle that he went in at that took him in initially. And then
he's hit 3 times.
That's right, yeah, because he hit the wall that side, and then he's come across, he's hit the wall on the right, on our right, as we look at it, there, and then flicked the car back up again. That was quite a ride that Christian Fittipaldi went through. And, well, Gilles de Ferran able to get back out in his spare car and get into the points and finish off quite well in the end. So, well, it's been quite a long afternoon, a dramatic afternoon in this second round of the PPG Kart World Series, and you certainly can't say that IndyCar racing's not exciting. It's provided us with all sorts of entertainment. Next week, we're going to be live in Long Beach, and you'll be able to watch the coverage. There'll be extended coverage. We'll also have interviews. We'll have pre-race introductions. We'll have a lot more coverage from Long Beach as Eurosport goes live to California for round 3 of the championship. David, I hope you've enjoyed the commentary today. Thank you for joining in.
I have. Thank you very much.
You're going to be a bit too busy racing yourself next weekend to watch that, but I expect you'll be quite interested.
I'll be very interested to see. I think it's going to be an exciting race again, because no one's really dominating.
Well, my thanks to David Brabham for joining me this weekend for the Surfers Paradise race, and I hope that you've enjoyed the coverage this weekend, our qualifying and race coverage, and I do hope that you'll join us from Long Beach for next week. There should be some more great racing, more great action. I do hope you stay with us here on Eurosport. From Ben Edwards and David Brabham. For now then, goodbye.